A young man gasped for breath, exhausted after a long period of strenuous labor. Clenching his teeth, he hoisted an enormous, heavy claw onto his shoulder, dragging himself forward step by step toward his destination. A massive beast was being butchered by a crowd of people, its remains carried toward large transport trucks. The captain's loud, commanding voice rang out over the chaos. "Listen up, all of you! If you don't finish moving everything before nightfall, there will be no dinner!" He ruthlessly kicked a man who had collapsed from exhaustion, cursing. "You're not dead yet, get up and keep moving!" The young man carrying the massive claw dared not slack off, trembling under its weight. He forced himself forward, his entire body quivered from the strain, but the captain suddenly pointed at him and shouted, "Chewie, you useless fool! What are you standing around for? Move it!" Chewie managed to force a weak, bitter smile and responded feebly, "Yes, Captain." Despite his exhaustion, an indescribable determination flickered in his eyes. This struggling figure, burdened by hardship, was Zhu Yi, an ordinary man simply trying to survive in the apocalypse. Zhu Yi's mind drifted back to the past, to the year 2026. Back then, golden sunlight bathed the luxurious city, but everything changed when a massive explosion erupted in the heart of the metropolis, marking the beginning of Doomsday. The world spiraled into a crisis beyond the realm of scientific explanation. The sky turned blood red, and terrifying scenes unfolded. Gigantic insects emerged from beneath the earth, coiling around buildings, destroying architectural marvels, and carving out endless abysses that linked to another world. From within those depths, murderous gazes gleamed, intent on annihilation. These abysses, later called the Abyss, became infamous, akin to high-difficulty dungeon levels in a game, brimming with nightmarish creatures. The Abyss emitted an unknown radiation, and a small fraction of people who were exposed to it developed extraordinary abilities. Some mutants became stronger, their bodies filled with superhuman power. These individuals were known as Awakened. However, those who couldn't awaken had no choice but to take on the dirtiest and most grueling jobs just to survive in the apocalypse. Snapping out of his memories, Zhu Yi returned to reality, following the convoy as they hauled massive slabs of meat toward the transport trucks. All around him, the desperate shouts of the weak echoed through the air. "Over there! Keep going! Pull harder!" After a long and grueling journey, Zhu Yi finally reached the transport truck. Together with another man, he mustered all his strength to lift the enormous claw onto the truck bed. 1, 2, lift! With a final heave, the claw settled into place, and both men collapsed. Completely drained, suddenly, a towering figure loomed over Zhu Yi. Before he could react, a brutal slap struck his face. The captain's furious voice rang out. "What the hell are you hesitating for? Don't act pitiful in front of me!" Zhu Yi gritted his teeth, clutching his stinging cheek, his frustration burning silently inside him. Before he could process his anger, a sudden commotion erupted. One of the giant insects that had been presumed dead thrashed wildly, springing back to life. Zhu Yi's face went pale. His eyes widened in sheer terror. Even the aggressive captain from moments ago froze in shock. "There's still one left alive!" The enraged insect lunged at them, sending the entire group into a panicked frenzy. "Run! Run for your lives!" Zhu Yi wasted no time, bolting away as fast as he could, but as he ran, he caught sight of the captain's gaze lingering on him. Filled with something sinister, the captain, seeing Zhu Yi's speed, narrowed his eyes. He clenched his jaw, unwilling to accept being outpaced. No, he couldn't let Zhu Yi escape. His mind worked quickly, a twisted plan forming. Then, amidst the chaos, a gunshot rang out. Zhu Yi froze. A searing pain shot through his leg as blood dripped down his skin. His vision darkened from the shock, and he stumbled, barely keeping himself upright. With trembling hands, he turned his head, his breath hitching at the sight of his attacker. The captain stood there, a smirk curling on his lips. Smoke still lingered from the barrel of his gun. Zhu Yi collapsed to the ground, his wounded leg unable to support him. "My leg," he stammered, voice laced with disbelief and pain. But the captain merely laughed, a cruel, triumphant sound. "Ha!" Without hesitation, he dashed past Zhu Yi, leaving him behind in the dust. "This is what useless people like you are for, bait!" he sneered before disappearing into the distance. Zhui lay sprawled on the ground, struggling in vain to move forward. His mind raced, realization sinking in. He had been sacrificed to buy them time to escape. Why? Why was survival so damn hard? His body trembled as he reached forward. But his strength was slipping away. No, he refused to accept this. A weakling like him would inevitably be discarded. But he wouldn't die here. Tears streaked down his dirt-covered face as despair clawed at his heart. Then, suddenly, he felt something, a slight movement. He slowly opened his eyes, only to see a cockroach crawling onto his hand. For a moment, he simply stared, momentarily stunned by its presence. He forced his trembling hand closer, staring at the tiny creature resting on his palm. "In this apocalyptic world," he murmured, "maybe only cockroaches are truly thriving. They could eat anything, unlike him, who struggled daily to find food. Their resilience was incredible. Even the abyss's radiation couldn't kill them." The small cockroach crawled slowly across his broad hand. Zhui looked at it and whispered, "In my next life." But before he could finish his thought, a massive shadow loomed over him. The monstrous insect had reached him, its gaping maw opened wide, ready to consume him whole. No! He didn't want it to end like this. In his final moment, one last thought flickered in his mind. If I could become a cockroach, that wouldn't be so bad. Then, everything went black. In an endless void, a cold mechanical voice rang out. "Initiating body reconstruction. Supernatural evolution system activated. First reconstruction attempt failed. Second reconstruction attempt failed. Third reconstruction attempt failed. Fourth reconstruction attempt failed. Reconstruction attempt #1, 559, 999 success." Somewhere in a dark, filthy alley, dim moonlight faintly illuminated the surroundings. Zhu Yi's consciousness slowly returned. "Am I dead?" His mind was hazy, but as he opened his eyes, an eerie sight greeted him. A strange, rigid limb with only 3 fingers lay before him. Wait, he had just lifted his hand, so why was he seeing this? His vision sharpened, and his gaze shifted toward a cracked mirror leaning against a nearby wall. Something felt off. Cautiously, he approached, and then, he saw it. A reflection that was not human, a grotesque, filthy cockroach stared back at him from the mirror. Zhu Yi's mouth fell open in shock, his body trembled violently as he struggled to comprehend what he was seeing. His mind fractured between 2 perspectives, one of a human looking at a cockroach, and one of a cockroach looking at itself. His eyes widened in horror, and he screamed, "Is this me?" His terrified voice echoed through the dark alley. "Oh God, did I really become a cockroach?" Frozen in disbelief, he took another glance at his new form, though he now had 2 additional hands, ones that somehow felt as though they had always been a part of him. His mind refused to accept it. Then, he hesitantly turned his head, trying to catch a glimpse of his back. Something felt strange. The only thing that truly unsettled him was the odd trapezoidal structure on his back. Suddenly, his tiny wings twitched, flapping instinctively. Zhui panicked. "Whoa, wait! Stop! Stop!" Then, suddenly, Zhui took off into the air. He screamed in terror, tears streaming down his face. Stop! Stop! It was his first time flying, and he had no control over his wings. Before he could even think, he crashed straight into a nearby wall. Ack! He tumbled to the ground in pain. Zhui groaned, rubbing his tiny head, but through his frustration, he realized something. If I just move my back muscles slightly, my wings flap automatically. His expression darkened. If I had known my dying wish would be granted this literally, I would have asked to become something else. Humans are so ungrateful. A cold, disdainful voice suddenly rang out. Zhui froze, right in front of him. Something bizarre floated in midair. It was a golden cockroach, and it was glaring at him with contempt. "You dare mock the will of the god of insects?" It snapped. Zhui gawked. "What?" The golden cockroach, no, the system, continued in a furious tone. "For 5,000 years you are the first human to beg the insect god for power. I intended to bestow upon you the greatest strength, but now you're regretting it? For a moment, Zhui just stared. Then, a devious grin spread across his face. He clasped his tiny hands together and immediately dropped to his knees. Big brother system. No, father system. I was wrong. I take it back. He groveled shamelessly, eyes sparkling with fake sincerity. The golden cockroach god was speechless. It stared at him for a long moment, then, without another word, vanished. A cold notification echoed in Zhu Yi's mind. System has shut down. The insect god is disgusted with you. A chilling wind seemed to blow through the alley. Zhu Yi froze in place. Oh no! He had royally pissed off his only chance of survival. For the next several days, Zhu Yi sat atop a pile of garbage, screaming into the void. System! Come back! Insect god! Please! Have mercy! Please, I'm just a stupid bug! His antennae drooped in despair. Nothing, no response. No matter what he did, the system would not return. Nearby cockroaches began whispering among themselves. What's wrong with that guy? Who knows? Zhui heard them and understood them. Wait, since when could he understand cockroach language? His thoughts drifted back to his first night as a cockroach. He had huddled in a dark corner, overwhelmed with misery and disbelief, even though he had joked about wanting to become a cockroach. Now that it had actually happened, he couldn't help but feel utterly disgusted with himself. From his hiding spot, he stole a glance at the nearby cockroaches, all gathered together in groups. They gathered together to enjoy disgusting food that made him want to vomit. Even his own kind found it revolting. A cockroach was savoring its meal when it suddenly noticed him. It cheerfully picked up its foul-smelling food and ran over to share it with Zhu Yi. Brother, feces must be eaten while it's still warm. Come quickly, there's a fresh piece just dropped. Zhu Yi was so horrified that his face turned pale, and he shouted in protest. You, stay away from me! But the cockroach didn't stop and instead came even closer, causing Zhu Yi to panic. In desperation, he lashed out and knocked the cockroach backward. The kind-hearted cockroach was sent sprawling on the ground, slightly hurt. It trembled, feeling sad and wronged, and hesitantly muttered, You've hurt my heart. Zhu Yi showed no remorse and ruthlessly replied, Sorry, but your breath reeks of feces. Could you just die before talking to me? Yet, on the second night, Zhu Yi lay weakly in an empty yard at a dark corner of the street. However, his genes were incredibly strong. He was actually starting to find the smell fragrant. Exhausted from prolonged hunger, his mouth watered, forming a small puddle, his vision blurred, and in his delirium, he suddenly sat up. Zhu Yi had to find some food, otherwise he feared he might sleepwalk into a pile of feces in the middle of the night. He started rummaging through nearby trash bags. Of course, plastic packaging might block a cockroach's sense of smell, but it couldn't fool the intellect of a human-turned-cockroach like Zhu Yi. He opened a large garbage bag and looked around for food. Based on his human experience, this trash pile was bound to have something edible. Finally, he found a big package of food buried in the trash. Only expired for 3 years. Excitedly, he shouted, Jackpot! Unable to wait any longer, he quickly tore open the plastic packaging. Inside was a large, moldy cake that made him freeze in place. Suddenly, a notification popped up from the system. System detected an expired salted egg cake. Approximate energy, 385 calories, still edible. The disgusting stench of the cake hit his nose, making him gag. 3 years expired? That's disgusting. But his stomach growled non-stop, making him hesitate. In the end, Zhu Yi lunged at the massive cake, devouring it eagerly. Tears streamed down his face as he chewed. So delicious. Though humans can't eat this, as a cockroach, this is simply divine. At that moment, Zhu Yi truly understood the meaning of becoming a cockroach. On the 10th night, Zhu Yi gazed sorrowfully at the sky and lamented. The insect god still hasn't appeared. He had thought that after becoming a bug, life might be a little easier, but reality had slapped him hard in the face. This was nothing like human life. Zhu Yi pursed his lips pitifully as he recalled everything he had endured. He had even considered suicide to start over. Thinking back to his failed attempts to end his cockroach existence, he sighed. Now that he was a roach, jumping off a building didn't kill him, drowning didn't kill him, and even drinking pesticide had failed. Zhui brooded. The only option left was to find a natural predator and let it eat him. Suddenly, he remembered that huge insect from before and shuddered quickly, rejecting the idea, but still. The thought alone was unbearable. Over time, he gradually came to accept his new life as a tiny cockroach. He glanced at the plump roach sleeping soundly beside him and sighed. Maybe he should try to live well. Fortunately, cockroaches were social creatures. If he could dominate a colony, become a cockroach king, for instance, his chances of survival would skyrocket. A fighting spirit ignited within him. Zhui furrowed his brows in determination. Humph! So what if I lost my golden finger? With the intelligence of my past human life, I can still live comfortably. With that thought, he patted the fat cockroach next to him, waking it up. Hey, Fatty, I see great potential in you. Want to follow me? Fatty, however, turned away coldly. I haven't even had my warm feces yet. Get lost. Zhui was speechless. He suddenly fell into deep thought. At that moment, Zhui realized something important. If he wanted to rule the cockroach world, it didn't matter whether he lived comfortably. What mattered was whether these insects perceived him as living comfortably. He understood. He had to prove himself. On the 20th day after his reincarnation, the opportunity finally arrived. In that dark corner of the street, a group of burly cockroaches stood tall, announcing to the weaker ones below. Starting today, our battalion will move to a place with richer food sources. If you don't follow us, stay here and wait for the enemy to wipe you out. Their words sent the weak cockroaches into a frenzy of panic. Wow! No more feces to eat! The swarm descended into chaos. Only Zhui frowned in anger as he looked at the pathetic cockroaches around him. You are the worst roaches I have ever led! You refuse to flip trash cans and just want to sit around waiting for feces? Pathetic! Fatty grew increasingly agitated as he thought about it, eventually roaring in frustration. I'm scared to go outside. Zhui couldn't take it anymore and quickly stopped him. Shut up! You're giving me a headache. Looking around at the other cockroaches, he sighed. Are they all really this afraid? Even cockroaches like staying home? Up above, the muscular cockroaches grew impatient and shouted. Who wants to go first? Don't lower your heads! Speak up! But the small, weak cockroaches all shrank back in silence, too terrified to respond. Zhui folded his arms and sneered. Pathetic, I don't even rely on the garbage you all eat to survive. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, catching his attention. The cockroach god declares, if you accept this mission, I may consider forgiving you. Zhui froze, sweating nervously. After a moment of hesitation, he mustered his courage and raised his hand high. Standing among the trembling cockroaches, he declared boldly, I volunteer to lead. His bravery left Fatty in awe, and he gazed at Zhui with admiration. Damn, boss, you're amazing! Inside, Zhui was thrilled. Holy crap, my cheat ability is finally coming back. Sometime later, Zhui and Fatty cautiously hid in a patch of grass, peering toward a massive dam. After scanning the area, Zhui muttered, So, the mission is just to cross this big dam? It's so quiet, seems easy enough. Fatty, terrified, immediately snapped back. What do you know? He then explained the mission in detail. Whenever food runs out in an area, the big cockroaches send the small ones to scout for a new home. But every time they do, they run into giant, hungry predators staring at them like snacks. Thinking about the dangers ahead, Fatty trembled violently. The world is full of enemies. The survival rate of the scouting teams is extremely low. Then, with a desperate tone, he warned, we could be wiped out at any moment. His words sent a chill down Zhuyi's spine. Huh! Isn't this just a death sentence? Zhuyi fell deep into thought. Why did the system suddenly return? Could the cockroach god be tricking me? Using my death to appease his anger? But he refused to let fear shake his resolve. Jumping to his feet, he shouted decisively, Screw this. We're retreating, I've got a better way to fill our bellies. Yet Fatty didn't respond. Instead, he trembled even harder, his fear intensifying. A towering figure loomed behind Zhu Yi. It locked onto him with an intense, bullet-like gaze. But he remained oblivious, instead questioning Fatty in confusion. What's wrong with you? A deep, menacing voice suddenly growled from behind, making Zhu Yi freeze in terror. Where do you think you're going? The massive cockroach's gaze shifted toward the dam as it continued. Beyond this dam lies a feast of foreign monsters, first come, first served. Zhu Yi gulped and slowly turned to look at the giant cockroach. Have roaches evolved to the point where they can eat creatures from other dimensions? Too powerful. Well then, I guess I'll never go hungry again, goodbye. With tears in his eyes, he pitifully pleaded. I'm on a diet lately, you guys go ahead and enjoy dinner without me, okay? The giant cockroach remained silent, seemingly lost in thought. Then, in a flash, its hand shot forward like lightning. It grabbed Zhu Yi by the neck and lifted him high into the air. If you refuse to scout, it warned coldly, then you and your friend will be dinner. Zhu Yi's tiny body trembled violently in its grip. Despite his fear, anger boiled inside him, even as a bug. I still can't escape the law of the jungle? Zhu Yi recalled the scene from his past life with deep resentment. Back then, his team had been weak and without support, and the base's management had sent them out to scavenge for food. He remembered the strong, imposing figures of the managers as they loudly berated them, calling them useless deadweights who did nothing but wait for death. The manager had shamelessly justified his actions, claiming that sending them out to find food was a reward, an opportunity for them to survive. His words echoed exactly what the giant cockroach was saying to Zhu Yi now. You should be grateful to me for giving you a chance to live. With that, the massive insect violently hurled him to the ground. But it didn't stop there. It flew over and pressed him down with its legs, pinning him against the dirt. Zhu Yi could barely move. His entire body trembled with rage as he glared at the domineering creature. His current weakness only fueled his determination. He had to reclaim his golden hand. His eyes burned with bloodshot fury. Simply being a scavenger insect capable of eating anything was nowhere near enough to survive in the apocalypse. With a resolute roar, he declared, I must become stronger. A while later, realizing they could not resist the larger roaches, Zhu Yi's small and weak swarm was forced across the dam. Leading the frail group, he cautiously stepped forward in the darkness. His voice was firm as he instructed them. Spread out and move up. The moment you notice anything unusual, signal the alarm immediately. He frowned, annoyed, and brushed off the chubby little one clinging to his side. Fatty, don't stick so close to me. The weak little roach whimpered pitifully. Boo-hoo. I'm scared. Zhu Yi wiped his sweat and shifted his gaze toward the dam ahead. He scrutinized the surroundings carefully. This dam is strange. This isn't even a riverside area, so why are there wave-blocking stones here? Meanwhile, behind a bush, two large roaches had been observing Zhu Yi's group. One of them suggested, Boss, they've already climbed halfway, and nothing's happened yet. Should we go too? The other one, agreeing, stepped forward aggressively. Yeah, we can't let those little bugs eat all the good stuff first. With that, it shouted at the other large roaches under its command. Fly straight over. Even if there are enemies, we'll crush these weaklings first. Ha! Zhu Yi, hands on his hips, furiously watched as they soared over his head. He fumed. Ha! They can fly just fine, so why did they make us do all the scouting? Seething with anger, he cursed the powerful roaches for pushing their burden onto the weak. Damn bastards! Just then, behind him, the large, oddly shaped rock suddenly began to tremble. Zhu Yi sensed the strange movement and turned around cautiously. Huh! A massive, blood-red eye was staring straight at him. For a long moment, Zhu Yi stood frozen in terror, unable to process what he was seeing. Then, his voice cracked in horror as he stammered. These rocks. Gigantic frogs locked their gazes onto the delicious prey before them. Zhu Yi cried out in shock. These stones are actually frogs. They've been camouflaging themselves, waiting for their prey to step into their trap. Cold sweat drenched his body as he desperately searched for a way to escape. Meanwhile, the other roaches had already started sobbing in despair, resigning themselves to their fate. The massive frogs could no longer hold back, their long tongues shot out. Snatching up their prey, Zhui shouted to his teammates, "Run! Split up and run! Fly up!" But the unfortunate roaches that failed to escape were quickly swallowed by the enormous amphibians. Within moments, they were all devoured. Suddenly, after days of silence, the system activated with a notification. Encountered a natural predator, extracting biological data. Mutant amphibian frog detected. Enhanced leg muscles allow jumping distances up to 20 times body length. Tongue can shoot out at 4 meters per second, targeting prey. Hooked barbs on the tongue ensure capture. Mucus on the tongue contains a numbing agent. Weakness. Unable to see stationary prey clearly. The chubby little roach stood frozen in fear, sobbing uncontrollably. "Hoo hoo hoo! Mom, I'm going to die! What do I do?" Having received the system's detailed analysis, Zhui yelled, "Don't move! If you stay still, they can't see you! Lie down and stay completely still!" Then, after days of absence, the roach god suddenly reappeared. It presented Zhui with a choice. It pointed out a path and explained, 1. Follow the safe route to escape danger. Doing so would ensure survival and allow him to build his reputation. 2. Save one roach and take the path to the Roach King. This roach would become his first loyal follower. Standing between the two choices, Zhui carefully weighed his options. How could I ever become the Roach King if I can't even survive? Of course I should. Before he could finish his thought, a pitiful wail reached his ears. Hoo hoo hoo! The chubby little roach was curled up between two large rocks, trembling and sobbing. Tear-filled eyes pleaded with Zhui. "Big brother." That look. Zhui was suddenly reminded of a moment from his past life. Back then, he had been just as weak, gazing desperately at his ruthless teammates. He had stretched out his hand, hoping someone, anyone, would notice him. More than anything, even more than his fear of death, he had wished someone would reach out to save him. As his vision had blurred, he had clung to that hope. Tears welled up in his eyes at the memory. Even in the apocalypse, even in the face of life and death. The roach god grew impatient and coldly began counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2. Zhui remained deep in thought. He still longed for an answer, and then, he made his decision. Without hesitation, he shot forward like an arrow. Someone came to save me once. Ignoring the danger, Zhui flew up and grabbed the chubby roach, yanking it away. "Damn it, you fat idiot! You eat too much crap. After this, you're going on a diet." The chubby roach was overwhelmed with emotion, tears and snot streaming down its face. "Big brother, I love you!" Zhui snapped. "Shut up! Your breath is distracting me." Struggling to drag the chubby one along, Zhui flew forward, until both of them suddenly froze in place. Right in front of them, a massive frog lay in wait, mouth wide open, ready to devour them whole. Zhui broke into a cold sweat, his entire body tensed. His gaze flickered with determination. Then, without hesitation, he threw the chubby roach away, launching it out of danger. "Big brother!" The chubby one screamed, looking back in horror, and in the next instant, the giant frog's mouth clamped down on Zhui. A cold mechanical voice echoed in his mind. "Ting! You have overcome the Roach God's trial. Your courageous sacrifice has moved the Roach God. The system will now be reactivated." Suddenly, the frog that had swallowed Zhui began to swell unnaturally. Another system message appeared. "Activating special trait, devour all things." Acquired abilities: mutant frog's rebounding sticky tongue and strong acidic mucus. The frog's entire body shuddered violently in terror, then, it exploded. A strange liquid splattered everywhere. The system chimed again. Special reward. From within the grotesque remains, a human foot, slick with a thick, slimy fluid, stepped onto the ground, and then, according to the system's decree, Zhui, in the human form of his past life, was reborn. Zhuyi's smile had returned, this time, in human form. Seeing that he was no longer a cockroach, he beamed like a child, stretching his arms and jumping up excitedly. Ha ha! I'm back, baby! But if one looked closely, he still had two little cockroach antennae on his head. At that moment, the roach god system appeared beside him. Moved by Zhu Yi's compassion, the roach god solemnly announced, Zhu Yi, even in the depths of despair, you have maintained your kindness. You are worthy of becoming my successor. Hearing that familiar cockroach voice, Zhu Yi froze, his eyes widening. Successor? Successor of the roach god? Recalling the horrifying form he had just escaped from, Zhu Yi quickly pointed at himself. Scowling. Wait. Are you saying I have to turn back into a cockroach? The roach god system remained completely calm, raising a hand toward the sky and speaking with great wisdom. A cockroach is a little strong survivor. A little strong survivor is immortal. And when one is immortal, does it even matter what form they take? Just when Zhu Yi thought he had finally escaped that awful default cockroach mode, reality hit him like a brick. His face darkened as he muttered, Boss, could you speak a little more plainly? I'm not very good at literature. Completely fed up with him, the roach god lost its patience and screamed in his face. It means that even in human form, you will still have immortality. You fool! Zhu Yi blinked, then, rubbing his chin, he slowly processed the information. Oh. So that means. The next second, he completely ignored his naked body and skipped around in excitement, stretching his arms wide. Yes. I don't have to turn into a cockroach anymore. The roach god system sighed in satisfaction and praised him. It is rare to see someone like you, who refuses to abandon a comrade, even if they are just an insect. You are truly remarkable. Splat! A loud, wet crunch echoed from beneath Zhu Yi's foot. His toes instinctively curled in horror. The system froze, its gaze dropped to the ground, staring at Zhu Yi's foot in stunned silence. Zhu Yi turned pale, he let out a nervous laugh. Ha! This feeling under my foot. Don't tell me. Slowly, he lifted his foot. Beneath it lay Chubby Roach, flattened into a bloody mess, dead, on this spot. Zhu Yi's eyes bulged in panic. Chubby! The roach god system lost its mind. It trembled with fury and bellowed. You useless idiot! You just squashed the comrade you risked your life to save! How can the author toy with emotions like this? Zhu Yi felt as if he had fallen into an abyss of guilt. His hands trembled as he crouched down, too afraid to even touch Chubby's lifeless body. His mind raced in pure horror. Wait, hold on, I only got to become human because I saved Chubby, right? But now I've stepped on him? The system. It won't turn me back into a cockroach, will it? From behind him, he could feel the scorching, murderous glare of the roach god burning into his back. His spine turned ice cold, sweat poured down his face like a waterfall. Zhu Yi forced himself to stay calm. Breathe, stay cool, my entire life depends on my acting skills now. The roach god was so furious that sparks of rage exploded in its vision. I can't believe how blind I was to choose you as my successor. I swear I want to. There was no way Zhu Yi would let his chance to stay human slip away. Clutching Chubby Roach in his hands, he clutched his head and wailed in utter despair. Chubby. Oh, Chubby. The roach god stood behind him. Arms crossed, lips curling into an open display of disdain. But Zhu Yi wasn't done yet. He launched into a full-on theatrical meltdown, pounding his chest like a grieving widow, his tears flooding like a broken dam. Heavens above! How am I supposed to live after this? I raised Chubby with my own hands, made sure he was well fed and taken care of. And now I have to witness someone with black hair sending off someone with green hair before their time. He suddenly paused. Wait, no, Chubby got fat from eating poop every day, didn't he? But even that realization did nothing to stop his dramatic mourning. Zhu Yi collapsed to the ground, rolling back and forth in despair, thrashing about like a fish out of water. Fate, are you playing a cruel joke on me? Just take me with him already! Without my brother, how can I go on? This ridiculous display of grief was so extreme that even the roach god found himself wavering. Despite Zhu Yi's utterly over-the-top reaction, The roach god felt a sliver of guilt creeping in. So their bond was this deep? Perhaps. I misjudged him. After a long moment of contemplation, the roach god snapped his fingers. A system panel appeared in midair. Enough crying! Chubby isn't dead! Zhui immediately froze, his tear-streaked face snapped up, eyes filled with disbelief. Huh! The roach god smirked. To be precise, he will never die. The system panel displayed an image of Chubby Roach, along with several status indicators. He is your personal guardian, your Imperial Roach Guard. The Roach God's voice grew louder as he dramatically pointed at the mutated frogs below. You are a king! You are immortal! And as your sworn protector, he too shall be reborn endlessly. So long as you kill enough mutated creatures to replenish his energy, he will always rise again. Realization hit Zhui like a truck. He slowly rose to his feet, now standing tall among the swarm of mutated frogs, once terrifying obstacles. They now looked as small as the palm of his hand. Zhuyi's expression shifted. He looked left, he looked right, then, with a smirk, he muttered under his breath. Well, talk about a fated encounter. Even if I wanted to let these frogs go, I just can't. With an eerie grin, Zhui extended his massive hand toward the tiny green frogs, his breath heavy with anticipation. Today, I will make sure you creatures forever remember the terror of being ruled by humankind. But mutated frogs were no fools. With their keen instincts, they sensed Zhuyi's murderous intent in an instant. In the blink of an eye, one frog launched itself toward him, landing squarely on his massive forearm. Before Zhui could even react, smack! A single frog slap landed directly across his face. His cheeks swelled red instantly. His vision blurred, his mind went blank. The frog's sharp, unforgiving gaze bore into him with pure contempt. This was no ordinary frog, this was a mutated frog, and with just one slap, it had absolutely wrecked Zhuyi's face. Zhuyi's body shook with rage. He clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles cracked. Oh, you wanna act tough, huh? His voice dripped with murderous intent. Who do you think you are? Squad leader Levi Ackerman? Oh, so now they wanna pull an attack on Titan Reversal? The Roach God system suddenly sounded an alarm. Careful! You can't touch those mutated frogs! Their mucus is corrosive! Zhui froze, then, slowly, he opened his hands. The slimy green frog mucus was already eating away at his skin like acid, within seconds. His hands were covered in painful blisters, blood oozing from the wounds, his entire body shuddered. It burns! Zhui flung his hands around wildly, shaking his entire body like a possessed ragdoll. Hhhhh! Hot, 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 hot! His panicked thrashing caught the attention of a nearby fat frog. The frog's beady eyes locked onto Zhuyi's flailing movements. To the frog, Zhui looked exactly like a wiggling worm. Its predatory instincts kicked in. Without hesitation, the frog launched its long, sticky tongue straight at Zhui. Slap! The tongue latched onto Zhuyi's trunk. For a brief second, everything went completely silent. Then, Zhui screamed in horror, his entire body convulsing. Only men will understand the sheer agony of what just happened. Acting purely on survival instinct, Zhui jumped into the air, flailing violently. The unfortunate frog, still attached to him, was yanked up along with him. After what felt like an eternity, Zhui finally managed to pry the cursed frog tongue off him. Still trembling, he clutched himself and whimpered in pain. I lost to a frog. Defeated, he turned to the Roach God system. Boss, I can't beat these mutant frogs. The Roach God was not pleased. Nonsense! It roared. The frogs are using their natural abilities to fight. Meanwhile, you're just flailing around like an idiot. Why aren't you using your own special ability? Zhuyi's eyes widened in shock. Wait. I have a special ability? The Roach God, still glaring at him in frustration, picked up a frog and growled. The power I granted you is called Devour Everything. It tightened its grip. Eat them. Zhu stared blankly. What, if you eat them, you will steal their abilities, eat them, and you will gain their immunity. The more monsters you consume, the stronger you become, devour everything, and ascend to your godhood. Zhu visibly recoiled. He waved his hands in protest. Okay, sounds cool and all, but can I at least cook them first? The roach god ignored him. Without warning, it shoved an entire slimy frog straight into Zhu mouth. Just swallow it. The cold, gooey amphibian slid straight down his throat. Zhu, desperate for power, tried to endure it. But the moment his tongue touched the slimy, mucus-covered flesh, every single taste bud in his mouth screamed in protest. A horrifying, nightmarish flavor flooded his senses. A second later, I can't do it. Zhu immediately doubled over and vomited everything back out. The roach god folded its arms, looking thoroughly unimpressed. Then, it pointed at the mass of writhing frogs swarming at Zhu feet. If you can't do it, then you're about to log out permanently. Zhu stomach dropped. Only now did he realize. The frogs had already completely surrounded him. Zhu turned purple with fear. Not only were the mutated frogs swarming him from below, but now they were leaping at him from above as well. Freshly reincarnated and still weak, Zhu had no choice but to scream non-stop as the frogs piled onto him. Their slimy limbs covered every inch of his body, leaving only his tear-filled eyes visible. At that moment, Zhu's mind shifted. Wait! What the hell am I doing? Back in his old life, he worked himself to the bone, struggled just to eat, and sometimes went to bed hungry. And now, food was literally being shoved into his face, yet he was turning his nose up at it. His mentality instantly changed. To hell with it! No more hesitation! With newfound determination, Zhu opened his mouth wide and chomped down on a mutated frog. Crunch! The bones snapped between his teeth as the disgusting, slimy creature was devoured whole. And just like that, ding! A series of bright blue system notifications popped up before him. Devour everything. Activated. Analyzing creature's attributes. New abilities acquired. Corrosive mucus frog leap enhanced muscles. The moment the upgrades kicked in, Zhu leaped into the air. High above the battlefield, he landed. Completely naked, but brimming with new power, an overwhelming sense of exhilaration coursed through his veins. Eyes shining, he turned to the remaining frogs, flashing a handsome yet menacing grin. Your abilities are useless against me now. Now it's my turn. Without hesitation, he launched himself at the horde, his newfound strength sending frogs flying in every direction. A whirlwind of fists and feet tore through the battlefield, Zhu's flawless execution making him look like a martial arts master. Somehow, despite being completely nude, he managed to fight gracefully without exposing anything inappropriate. Within seconds, the battlefield fell silent. Mutated frogs lay scattered all around him. Twitching in defeat, standing tall, Zhu looked up at the sky, his back facing the carnage behind him. A soft breeze swept through the area. Then, with a voice full of melancholy, he murmured dramatically, "They say, being unbeatable is a lonely path." Just as he was basking in his own glory. Beep! A blinding headlight suddenly illuminated his entire body. Zhu instinctively shielded his eyes, squinting at the approaching vehicles. A fleet of heavily armored military trucks rolled to a stop right in front of him. From the loudspeakers, a soldier's voice boomed across the battlefield. "Captain? We've located a naked pervert performing obscene acts with frogs. Orders?" Tears welled up in Zhu's eyes. "Fellow humans! Have you come to save me?" For a moment, hope sparkled in his heart. Then, the soldier's cold voice shattered it into pieces. "Shoot him!" Zhu's soul left his body. THWIP. Thwip! Thwip! Before he could react, countless tranquilizer darts rained down upon him, piercing his bare skin from every direction. Zhu stood there, completely dumbfounded. He slowly looked down at his own body, only to see himself covered head to toe in darts. A few minutes earlier, when the armored military convoy stopped and shone its headlights directly at Zhu, he struggled to shield his eyes with his hand. As he looked at the large insignia on the front of the vehicle, recognition dawned on him. He exclaimed internally, This was the extermination squad. Slowly lowering his hand for a clearer view, Zhu Yi muttered to himself. In my past life, I heard people mention them. The extermination squad is humanity's strongest resistance force during the apocalypse. Every member of the squad is an awakened Tier 1 warrior. They are responsible for eliminating monsters lurking on the surface and in the deep abyss, as well as monitoring and handling newly emerged abysses. They also maintain security around the cities. It's said that those living in the cities protected by the extermination squad can live peacefully, just like before the catastrophe. Lost in thought for a moment, Zhu Yi's eyes widened as if he had discovered a new path. He continued contemplating. Encountering a patrol team from the extermination squad here must mean thinking they would surely come to his rescue. He raised his eyes filled with innocent hope and joyfully shouted, "My comrades! Have you come to save me?" His anticipation was met with the sudden sound of tranquilizer guns firing. Pft, pft, pft. Instead of being rescued, his body was riddled with tranquilizer darts meant for wild beasts. Stunned, Zhu Yi couldn't believe his eyes as he looked down at his muscular, well-defined chest. His bare body collapsed before the glaring headlights of the vehicle. Several soldiers stepped out, guns in hand. One leading soldier, flanked by two subordinates, cautiously approached with their weapons raised and protective gear secured. The leader signaled with his hand and issued a command. Target locked, prepare for capture. The plan was to smoothly capture Zhu Yi, but unexpectedly he hadn't succumbed to the sedatives yet. As he raised his hand, the leader, caught off guard, immediately ordered, "Wait, stop!" Just as he was about to collapse, Zhu Yi suddenly steadied himself and reached forward with trembling hands. His body, though weak, showed resilience, causing the soldiers to freeze in surprise. A system notification appeared. His muscles had become more flexible, granting him complete control over every fiber of his body, allowing him to dodge any attack with ease. At that moment, Zhu Yi's body functioned like thick, resilient rubber, capable of immediate recovery. The tranquilizer darts embedded in his flesh were swiftly ejected, one by one, plop, plop, plop. The puncture wounds sealed up almost instantly. Realizing Zhu Yi was no ordinary person, the three soldiers immediately switched to attack mode. They lined up, raised their weapons, and the squad leader shouted, "Dangerous target! All units, assume combat positions." Sensing the escalating tension, Zhu Yi quickly raised his hands in a gesture of peace, looking flustered by the situation. "Wait. Please hold on, officers. I'm not a bad person. Hear me out first." However, the commander ignored Zhu Yi's plea. Keeping his aim steady, he coldly ordered, "Take aim, fire." Just as he was about to be shot dead, a voice suddenly rang out, "Stop." The soldiers immediately released their triggers, and the squad leader, startled, turned to see who had spoken. The owner of the voice was a stunning young woman with porcelain-white skin and luscious lips. Her purple hair cascaded down elegantly as she calmly issued her order, "Take him alive." She leaned back against the large vehicle, her radiant face and bold outfit making a striking impression. Her long, fair legs and massive curves were on full display, causing the soldiers under her command to immediately respond in unison. "Yes, Captain." Seeing that the extermination squad showed no signs of easing up, Zhu Yi, still holding both hands in the air, grew frustrated and cursed. "What the hell is this? Do these people not understand human language?" Suddenly, the sound of roaring engines filled the air as motorcycles screeched against the dirt. Screech! Two more riders sped toward Zhu Yi, who was standing awkwardly with his legs apart. These riders skidded to a stop before circling around him like predators. Trapped, Zhu Yi remained on high alert, cautiously watching their every move. They treated him like a wild beast, pulling out ropes and swinging them to gain momentum before hurling them toward his neck. Not just one, but 4 ropes shot out from 5 different directions, simultaneously binding his arms, legs, and neck. The target was secured. It was time for the brutal 5 horses dismemberment technique. At the squad leader's command, 5 riders revved their engines and sped off in opposite directions. The ropes stretched to their limits, yanking Zhu Yi's limbs and head in different directions. He screamed in agony, clenching his teeth as his muscles tensed in an effort to resist being torn apart. After reincarnating as a cockroach with the power of a frog, Zhu had become much stronger. However, even with his newfound abilities, human strength had its limits. Struggling, he hunched forward and called upon the Cockroach God System. Immediately, a system notification appeared. Corrosive mucus. The user can secrete a highly acidic slime similar to that of a mutated frog. His eyes locked onto the information on the system panel. Now knowing exactly what to do, he furrowed his brows. With determination, clenching his fists, he slowly began secreting a green acidic slime at the points where the ropes bound him. The reaction was immediate. The ropes began to dissolve, from a distance. The purple-haired woman noticed this and tilted her head, scrutinizing the scene. In mere moments, the ropes snapped apart. All at once, the force of the pull backfired, sending the riders tumbling through the air as their vehicles lost balance. Zhu, now free, landed firmly on the ground, his body unharmed, observing his abilities. The squad captain's eyes gleamed with desire. She traced a sharp fingernail along her lower lip. Her expression filled with intrigue. Is he an awakened one too? Capture him! Zhu turned and ran, without even a scrap of clothing left to cover himself. Four soldiers immediately gave chase, determined to capture him at all costs. Eyes shut tight, he sprinted blindly. Suddenly, a blue-haired soldier lunged forward, wrapping his arms around Zhu waist. Ha! The soldier was caught off guard as his grip slipped. Zhu's skin was covered in a thick layer of green mucus, making him as slippery as an eel. He effortlessly slid out of the soldier's grasp. Not only that, but even with gloves on, the soldier's hands still burned painfully as the corrosive mucus ate away at his skin. He stopped chasing Zhu and instead watched the stark naked figure disappear into the distance. Clicking his tongue in frustration, he muttered, "Damn! Interesting, I won't let this slide so easily." Behind him, a brown-haired soldier bent his knees, gaining momentum before launching himself forward. He was incredibly fast. Within seconds, he was right behind Zhu's neck. His face was shrouded in darkness, with only his bright eyes glowing ominously. Zhu glanced back and was startled. He stretched his legs even farther, sprinting for his life. The soldier aimed a powerful strike directly at Zhu's head, but thanks to his quick reflexes, Zhu swiftly changed direction and narrowly dodged it. The blow was so strong that the ground cracked apart, sending large chunks of debris flying. But the brown-haired soldier wasn't done yet. His combat skills were no joke. Just as Zhu turned his head, he was already swinging his staff right in front of him. Zhu panicked, unsure how to react. Wham! In an instant, the soldier's strike came crashing toward Zhu's temple, but thanks to his heightened senses, he detected it just in time. Bending his back at an impossible 360-degree angle, he barely avoided the attack. Gritting his teeth, Zhu thought to himself, I need to rely on the system to escape this. But of course, that damned system only showed up when he was on the brink of death. Frustrated, he cried out internally, "Where the hell is my golden finger system?" At that moment, two glowing hands appeared in front of him. System activated, frog leap. Before he could even process it, his body instinctively reacted. He pushed off the ground with immense force. Leaping like a true frog, in an instant, he soared over 10 meters into the air. The two soldiers on the ground stood there, dumbfounded, watching his bare figure vanish in the blink of an eye. Even Zhu himself couldn't believe it. Staring at his own hands in astonishment, he thought, it worked. I actually did it. Looking back, he realized he had put a huge distance between himself and the extermination squad. Out of breath but grinning smugly, he laughed. He he he! Feeling victorious, he pranced forward with exaggerated hops, taunting them as he ran. You still think you can catch me? Ha! But just as he was basking in his triumph, his entire body was suddenly yanked backward. His laughter was cut short, replaced by sheer panic. Looking down at his leg, he saw the cause. He had been caught. Instant karma. A thick, glowing purple rope had wrapped tightly around his ankle, radiating an overwhelming energy. His body slammed into the ground with a painful thud. It was her, the purple-haired captain, From atop the distant vehicle, she had merely pointed a finger, and in an instant, strands of web-like silk had entangled his leg. Leaning back casually on one arm, she smirked and said, "What's this? Did you really think you could escape?" Zhu Yi was in complete panic. He clenched his teeth in pain, unable to believe that the woman before him was this powerful. She truly saw him as nothing more than a wild beast. Without hesitation, she pulled the thread back, causing Zhu Yi to lose his balance and fall backward. The pain was so intense that he shouted, "Ouch!" The woman then extended all 10 fingers, shooting out 10 strands of spider silk toward Zhu Yi. Each strand was composed of countless smaller threads woven together into a thick, long, and sturdy rope. These strands wrapped tightly around his lengthy body, binding him almost entirely. He looked utterly bewildered. Then, in the blink of an eye, she disappeared like a gust of wind, leaving behind only a trail of dust and a shadow moving at lightning speed. A second later, her foot stomped directly onto Zhu Yi's face, pressing down hard to pin him against the ground. She then turned to ask the soldier behind her, "How many is this now?" The blue-haired soldier immediately responded, "Reporting, Captain. This is the 13th one." Once Zhu Yi was fully restrained, the woman casually mounted a nearby motorcycle and revved the engine. Wrapped tightly like a silkworm cocoon, Zhu Yi had the terrible misfortune of being dragged along the road by the team captain. He was brutally tormented, tears streaming down his face as he cried out, "Please spare me!" The entire convoy of the execution squad followed behind, moving in formation. Even from a distance, Zhu Yi's desperate screams could still be heard. "Help me!" The convoy gradually disappeared into the depths of the city. A while later, the scene shifted to the execution squad's base within the city. This place was surrounded by massive walls designed to protect humanity from the relentless attacks of monsters. The convoy finally arrived at the enormous front gates of the base. They quickly broadcasted over loudspeakers for those inside to hear. "Captain Aaron has returned! Open the gates!" The purple-haired woman, now identified as Aaron, remained steady as she sped toward the slowly opening gates. She added, "No need to open them too wide, don't let any monsters slip in." Meanwhile, Zhu Yi could do nothing but cry in terror. As Aaron rode through the entrance, she executed a flawless, sharp turn with her bike, then turned to glance back at Zhu Yi with a mysterious smirk. A second later, she yanked the handlebars, sharply twisting the bike's trajectory. The sudden movement sent Zhu Yi swinging violently, his bound body slamming into the ground and ricocheting in all directions. Zhu Yi screamed as though he were about to meet his end, upon entering a room with a large notice board labeled Execution Squad Prison. Zhu Yi finally received some clothes. He looked much better in a prisoner's uniform. Aaron led the way at the front, while Zhu Yi was restrained between 2 scientists. Still unsure of their intentions, he clicked his tongue in frustration and complained, "It's the apocalypse, and I'm getting arrested just for running around naked? Isn't that a bit much? My dear beautiful sisters, I'm an honest and harmless guy." However, the reaction from the women walking beside him was different. The short-haired female scientist spoke up with surprise. "Oh? The naked man this time can actually talk? That's different from the last 12. Aaron immediately turned serious, her voice low and firm. "Stay alert. Within a week, 12 unidentified refugees have appeared, completely naked. They could only laugh blankly and didn't know how to speak, despite standard tests confirming they were normal humans. They gave off an overwhelming sense of inhumanity." The high ponytailed woman walking beside Zhu Yi suddenly snapped in frustration. "Then just get rid of them. Why go through all this trouble?" In response, the short-haired scientist calmly explained, "If we execute people simply because they have low intelligence or look suspicious, then how are we any different from the monsters outside? Enough talking, the genetic test results will be out tomorrow." Hearing this conversation, Zhu Yi finally pieced things together. He muttered to himself in realization, "Wait. So I was captured just because I happened to resemble those 12 weirdos?" Then, as if struck by lightning, his eyes widened in horror. "Hold on. They're going to conduct a genetic test?" Panic surged through him, and he quickly called out to the divine Cockroach system. "Hey, Cockroach God! Can they find anything suspicious in my genes? The system appeared immediately but simply asked in confusion. What is a genetic test? That innocent question was enough to confirm Zhu Yi's fate. His face turned ashen, and his soul felt like it was plummeting into an abyss for the second time. Zhu Yi could only sob silently. It's over. Ding! The elevator doors slid open. The three women escorted Zhu Yi into a vast, sealed room. They stepped onto a long, dimly lit corridor. One of the female scientists warned him sternly. Whether you're a real pervert or an accomplice of those 12, you'd better sit quietly in here today. Then, the short-haired scientist turned around and looked toward the prisoner seating area. Suddenly, she frowned. Huh! Why are the lights off? She continued walking forward and noticed something strange. There was only one person sitting in the dark room. She turned to the long-haired scientist beside her and asked, Hey, did you already move the other prisoners? Why is there only one left? The long-haired scientist looked equally confused. No. Wait, that's right. Where are the other prisoners? Focusing on the remaining man in the chair, they could now see his frail, motionless figure shrouded in darkness. His eerie presence sent a chill through the room. Erin narrowed her eyes and glanced around, fully on guard. The others also began nervously looking around, trying to figure out where the other prisoners had gone. On the other side of the room, there was the corpse of a man, except his head had swollen abnormally large, resembling a massive balloon. It was nearly 10 times the size of his body, looking so fragile that even the slightest touch of something sharp might burst it apart. Seeing this disturbing sight, Erin, the two female scientists, and Zhu Yi all turned pale as ghosts. Then, when they looked up, their eyes widened in sheer terror. Everyone broke into a cold sweat as the long-haired scientist gasped, realizing what was floating above them. Zhu Yi unconsciously muttered, What the hell is that? Above their heads, 11 prisoners were suspended in midair. Their heads had suddenly inflated like giant balloons, eerily floating above the group as if they had lost control of their bodies. The 4 of them froze in place, unable to process the nightmare unfolding before them. And then, they heard it. A disturbing, hollow laughter echoed through the room. Some male, some female. Every grotesquely pale face grinned lifelessly from above, their skin deathly white, as if all blood had been drained from their bodies. Just then, from behind Zhu Yi, the unmoving man in the chair suddenly let out a low groan. A chill shot down Zhu Yi's spine. His entire body turned cold with fear, his face turning pale as sweat poured down his skin, and then the man's entire body convulsed. He twitched violently, every limb shaking uncontrollably. His face was shrouded in darkness, but 2 eerie glowing dots could be seen where his eyes should be. A deep, beastly growl rumbled from his throat. Then, his head tilted back, and under the dim light, they could see it. His bald scalp, now cracking open piece by piece, chunks of flesh splitting apart. Then, he grinned. A horrifying smile full of cracked, jagged teeth. His 2 glowing pupils trembled, completely lifeless, and then he chuckled. Ka. Continuing from the previous episode, the head gradually swelled up and then exploded like a balloon. Underneath the thin, torn skin were clusters of red, slimy masses packed together. Even more terrifying, countless eyes were embedded all over it, and beneath them were 3 rows of razor-sharp, demonic teeth. Its grotesque form was beyond words. A loud noise erupted, startling Zhu Yi and the long-haired female scientist. Their eyes locked onto the bizarre entity before them. The monstrous creature had now fully emerged from the man's corpse, expanding as numerous long, red tentacles sprouted from its body. It lunged forward with all its might, its many eyes widening as it attacked. The massive creature had a humanoid shape, yet it was 10 times larger than a normal person, with a muscular build and numerous tentacles extending from its back. Letting out a chilling screech, it grabbed Zhu Yi and the 2 female scientists. Unable to move due to his restrained hands, Zhu Yi could only let out desperate cries as the monstrous appendages ensnared them. Now, only one target remained, Erin. The creature pointed a red tentacle at her. However, the fearless woman stood her ground, spreading her legs slightly in a battle stance, showing no signs of panic. With sharp reflexes, she dodged in an instant, causing the tentacle to miss. In a blur of movement, she leaped away, leaving only a shadow behind. From above, Erin extended her hand, revealing 5 sharp, claw-like nails. Confident in her own abilities, she was actually quite intrigued by the challenge of facing such a formidable monster. She smirked and said, "So this is your true form." Meanwhile, the short-haired female scientist, who was being tightly squeezed, was in a state of extreme panic. Suddenly, large, cyst-like lumps began to swell all over her body, forming grotesque clusters. They even spread across her face. Trembling uncontrollably as she stared at them, she realized her body was weakening, the lumps growing thicker by the second. She touched her face in horror and screamed, "Oh no!" On the other side, Zhu Yu was also in complete panic after the sudden attack. He stared at the scattered cysts forming on his body, his mind racing. What the hell is happening? The godly cockroach system suddenly appeared with an urgent warning. "You've been infected by a parasite. Swallow its spores immediately. If you delay, you'll turn into a corpse." Zhu Yu was still too overwhelmed to react properly. He lacked the experience to deal with situations like this. Now, facing Erin, the monstrous creature let out a deep, guttural roar. "I want to eat your body!" All while it still held the 3 captives in midair, red parasitic spores swirling around them. Yet Erin remained unshaken. She narrowed her eyes at the creature and muttered, "Huh, you can even talk? Interesting, I've never seen a creature like you before." Then, a sly smirk crossed her lips. At this point, the 2 female scientists were nearly under complete control. Their consciousness faded, their actions growing more erratic. The long-haired scientist flailed her arms wildly, screaming uncontrollably. The short-haired scientist, on the other hand, growled menacingly like a wild beast. The monstrous creature was plotting to use the 2 women as weapons against Erin. Realizing its intentions, Erin shot a thick strand of glowing purple silk from her hand, anchoring it high above. The 2 infected scientists lunged toward her, but Erin had anticipated this. The silk thread latched onto a ceiling beam, and with a swift motion, she used its pull to launch herself high into the air, dodging the collision with the 2 controlled women. Her agility and speed were truly extraordinary. Seeing how difficult this grotesque creature was to deal with, Erin clenched her teeth in frustration. Fighting these parasitic monsters is such a hassle. I can't just charge in recklessly, she thought. And to make matters worse, I don't have any magic crystals on me, so I can't even use my abilities properly. As she pondered her next move, her eyes caught sight of a nearby shelf. She quickly muttered to herself, "Wait! Is that?" On the shelf, a variety of surgical knives and medical instruments were neatly arranged. Making use of anything she could as a weapon, Erin released another silk strand, snatching up a surgical scalpel. This might work, she thought. The moment the scalpel touched the silk, it stuck firmly, stronger than super glue. Still hovering midair, Erin channeled her strength into the purple silk and hurled the scalpel forward at an incredible speed. The sharp blade cut through the air, aimed precisely at the grotesque creature. Among the many eerie eyes on the monster's grotesque, tumor-ridden mass, 2 of them locked onto Erin. Narrowing cautiously, they twitched among the pulsating lumps of fleshy growths. At the last moment, the creature retaliated, whipping out 2 thick, red tentacles to block the attack. Not only was this abomination disgusting, but it also had intelligence. It used its tentacles to pull the 2 captured scientists in front of itself as shields. Then, revealing its jagged, uneven teeth, it grinned mockingly at Erin. The young woman immediately realized its twisted strategy. Her expression darkening in anger, she adjusted her aim and, just as the scalpel's tip was about to pierce the wide, terrified eyes of one of the scientists, she yanked her silk thread back, stopping the blade just in time. The creature, still gloating from its supposed victory, sneered and taunted. "Humans! So weak!" Above, it continued to hold Zhu Yi tightly. He struggled desperately against the crushing force, fumbling with his handcuffs while muttering to himself, "Wait! Wait! Hold on!" At the same time, Zhu Yi was busy chewing the red cysts growing on his body, following the urgent instructions of the godly cockroach system. However, as he noticed the parasite's infection spreading even faster, his face paled in horror. Shit! I'm not eating fast enough to keep up with the rate it's infecting me! He yelled in panic. The godly cockroach stood beside Zhu, urging him impatiently. Hurry up! Stop jumping around and swallow that parasite's stomach, now! With great difficulty, Zhu forced himself to gulp down the disgusting, revolting mass. His entire face was nearly covered in parasite blisters. He clenched his teeth, determined not to vomit it back out. Then, the system notification rang. Parasite stomach devoured. Gain trait. Parasite resistance 10%, parasite resistance 35%, parasite resistance 46%. Meanwhile, Erin, having observed the slashing technique of a werewolf, now wielded 4 sharp surgical knives in her hands. Her tone was sharp and filled with frustration as she retorted. Are you insulting yourself now? With those words, Erin's aura became even more intense. The small but fierce girl swung her arms wide, sending the 4 scalpels flying forward with incredible force. The sheer speed caused the air to ripple as they cut through the space between them. A coward who only hides behind hostages. Pathetic! She spat, but once again the monster used the 2 female scientists as human shields, laughing mockingly. Ha! Ka! Useless! It sneered this time. Erin extended her 10 sharp fingers forward, wiggling them as she activated her ability. She smirked slightly, entertained by the creature's predictable tactics. Oh? Is that so? She murmured. The 2 scalpels flying straight at the captive scientists suddenly veered off course, curving around them in an unexpected trajectory. The 2 women had already reached the critical stage of their infection, completely immobile and unconscious. The monster's grotesque, uneven eyes bulged in shock. It hadn't anticipated Erin's feint. Now, its attention was locked on the 4 blades, too late to react. HHH! The creature let out a deafening, ear-splitting shriek as the scalpels sank into its flesh. But Erin wasn't finished. Another blade, coated in her spider silk, was now soaring directly at it. Chunks of grotesque, fleshy masses on its head were sliced off, blood splattering in all directions. The creature staggered back, suffering blow after blow. With Erin's proximity, her strikes became even more lethal. Despite its enormous size, the monster found itself unable to retaliate in time. Its grotesque body was durable, but Erin had figured out its weakness. Her narrowed eyes glinted coldly. Just as I thought, she whispered to herself. Its real body isn't strong enough, so it needs a host to protect itself. For a moment, it seemed like Erin had won. However, the next moment shattered her expectations. As soon as the monster sustained injuries, the 2 scientists suddenly screamed in agony, their bodies twisting unnaturally. Their wounds mirrored the creature's. Every slash, every stab, it had transferred the damage to its hosts. The monster grinned, watching Erin's shocked expression. You! What? Erin's eyes widened in disbelief. She had never encountered a creature with such a cruel ability before. This was no ordinary parasite. It was a sadistic, intelligent abomination. It chuckled menacingly, still struggling with human speech. If you hurt me, I transfer it to others. As it spoke, the wounds on its own body rapidly healed, just as if they had never been inflicted in the first place. Erin felt a rare sense of unease creeping into her heart. This thing is seriously annoying, she muttered, irritation flashing in her eyes. But the nightmare wasn't over. The monster had another surprise for her. It raised a thick, grotesque finger, pointing straight at Erin's face. Ha! You! Already infected by us. A toxic, parasitic mist surrounded her. Then, her arm twitched uncontrollably. The parasite had already taken hold. It activated an unknown ability. Her eyes widened in horror as she looked down at her own hand. Even as she struggled against it, her fingers refused to obey her. My hand? I can't control it, she gasped. The tables had turned. With no other option, Erin watched in dread as her own hand moved against her will, slowly tightening around her own throat. She tried to resist, but the parasite's influence was too strong. Her grip only grew tighter. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her vision beginning to blur. The monster relished the sight before it. Nothing gave it more pleasure than watching its prey succumb. The pupils in its many eyes dilated to get a clearer view of its prey growing weaker. Its mouth opened wide, emitting a terrifying voice. "I won't give you the chance to cleanse your stomach." At that moment, the monster's gaze suddenly shifted. It glared downward, displeased. Despite struggling to breathe, Erin's small lips curled into a smirk. The parasite-infected hand that had been choking her slowly loosened its grip. Her quick thinking and timely response were commendable. Erin used the webbing from her free hand to wrap around one of her slender thighs, pulling her uncontrolled arm away from her neck, gradually escaping the attack. Straining against the force, Erin spoke, "I'm glad that I was the one caught in this trap. If it had been one of my teammates, you would have killed them for sure." As she tightened the silk strands, they stretched to their limit, glowing with a faint purple energy. Erin continued, "My threads can also manipulate the bodies of my enemies." Her parasitized hand darkened, veins bulging as the webbing constricted each finger. Despite her petite frame, she was resolute and fierce, her sharp voice cutting through the air as she looked directly at the grotesque creature. "And of course, this trick works on myself as well." With a flick of her fingers, the spider's silk retracted, and Erin manipulated a new weapon to strike. The scalpel she had retrieved earlier zipped through the air. Smoothly and effortlessly, slash, slash, Erin commanded the blade to slice repeatedly. She raised the parasitized hand, its outer skin now shredded, blood dripping down her arm, yet she remained unfazed, not betraying a hint of pain. Instead, she taunted, "Too bad. It's over for you." The monster, missing its chance to strike, seethed with rage, still arrogant. It sneered back at Erin, "Yes, but next time." It once again used the two unconscious women as shields, keeping its hulking body hidden behind them while snarling, "You're bleeding. You have no more strength to fight." Then, looming closer to the two unconscious women, it spoke in a dangerously low growl, "If you run, I'll kill them. Then I'll escape." Erin despised its smug, disgusting attitude. She wished nothing more than to drag it straight to hell. Holding back her fury, she glared and hissed, "Ha! Even if you kneel and beg for mercy before your death, I will never spare you." Up until now, all the focus had been on Erin and the monster. No one remembered that Zhu was still trapped above, hanging mid-air. Suddenly, the sound of bubbling and gurgling filled the air. The monster, puzzled, turned its many eyes upward. That was when it finally realized it had unconsciously lost control over Zhu this entire time. Its grotesque eyes widened in shock, processing the impossible. "No. I can't control him?" It quickly formed a new plan. "Then I'll eliminate him first." It wasted no time. The monster condensed one of its red tendrils into a sharp, needle-like spear. Like a giant, deadly syringe, with a swift motion, the tendril shot straight toward Zhu Yi's throat. Instinctively, he raised his shackled arms to shield himself, but even the restraints shattered under the impact. He thrashed, desperately struggling, "Just a few more moments, and he'd be done for." Zhu Yi's eyes were filled with sheer terror. He had faced life-and-death situations before, but each one had a different kind of fear. This time, he was certain he couldn't dodge it. He was done for. Just as the situation became dire, suddenly, strands of faint purple spider silk swirled around in front of him. He froze for a moment, bewildered. "Huh? What's happening?" Thud! Thud! A burst of energy light streaked forward at high speed in the blink of an eye. With just one hand, Erin yanked the silk forcefully, pulling Zhu Yi toward her. The second pull was even stronger, dragging him along like a rag doll. Terrified, Zhu Yi let out a high-pitched scream before he even processed what was happening. The monster glared at Erin, and raged at her, snatching its hostage away, because it couldn't control Zhu Yi. She was able to rescue him so easily. The red-brained creature fell silent, saying nothing. Following the force of the pull, Zhu Yi tumbled to the ground and slid right under two traffic light poles. Erin, satisfied, glanced at him. One life saved. Meanwhile, Zhu Yi was still in shock, eyes squeezed shut as he howled in distress. Feeling the tension ease around him, Zhu Yi finally dared to open his eyes. Only to realize something crucial. He landed in an awkward position. Groaning in pain, he struggled to speak. "Thanks for saving me." Then, as if noticing something, his face suddenly turned beet red, His nose started gushing blood uncontrollably. Even in such a dire situation, he had somehow managed to catch a glimpse of a delicate, blooming rose. A truly unforgettable experience. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he blurted out, "Thank you, Goddess of Mercy." Watching this pervert completely lost in his fantasies, Erin was speechless. Her bangs cast a shadow over her eyes, barely concealing her irritation. She had half a mind to beat him senseless. Without hesitation, she grabbed Jui by the collar, lifted him up, and barked, "Don't you have some kind of mutation ability like that thing? Or are you just a regular pervert?" Jui panicked, hurriedly clinging to Erin's sleeve as he pleaded, "Big sis, I told you plenty of times on the way here. You just never believed me." Deciding to spare Jui, for now, Erin refocused on the real problem at hand. The monster. She took a few steps forward and declared, "Now that it can't parasitize you, I have two plans." Erin's personality was strong-willed, completely opposite to Juyi's. Her sharp gaze locked onto the goal ahead, and she firmly presented their options. 1. We die together here. 2. I hold the monster back while you escape to report this. She even added with a teasing smirk, "You can dance on my grave later if you want." What a fearless beauty. Juyi hesitated, his mind racing. He was truly surprised by Erin. Clenching his teeth, he steeled his resolve. He had to choose one of the two options. At last, he stepped forward and declared, "I choose C." He strode past Erin with unexpected determination. Erin was completely caught off guard. "Huh? What do you mean, C?" she asked, instantly regaining her serious expression. She had genuinely wanted Jui to pick a choice. She had assumed that a half-naked pervert like him would obviously choose to run away. But Jui wasn't someone who could live like that. He clasped his hands together tightly, gritted his teeth, and declared with all his might, "We fight together. We'll smash that disgusting parasite into dust." Erin's expression shifted to one of intrigue. For the first time, she seemed to have a slightly higher opinion of him. "Oh?" she mused, tilting her head with interest. "Mind telling me why you suddenly feel like marching to your death?" Jui remained silent for a long time. He said nothing, but his eyes burned with determination and unwavering resolve. Behind him, Erin watched quietly, a small smile forming on her lips. At that moment, memories from Juyi's past life flashed through his mind. The time he faced death, desperately reaching out for help, only to be abandoned. No one had been willing to save him. And now, he refused to let history repeat itself, especially not with someone like Erin. Standing tall, he declared, "Because the thing I hate most is those who abandon their comrades and run when faced with monsters. People like that are worse than the creatures themselves." His words made Erin see him in a different light. She smirked, satisfied with his resolve. But, unable to resist teasing, she muttered, "I wonder, are you a brave young man or just an idiot?" Internally, her thoughts mirrored her words. "Yeah, definitely an idiot." She folded her arms, shaking her head with an amused grin. Jui, on the other hand, was feeling pretty smug, confident in the protection of his system. He grinned to himself. "Honestly, the great system already told me the monster's real body is actually weak. As long as we're immune to its parasitic abilities, it's nothing. With this achievement, I'll definitely earn a stable place in the extermination squad's territory." Ha ha ha. Meanwhile, the monster was beyond furious. It had been standing there, waiting for them to make a move, only to watch them chat like they were on a damned coffee date. Agitated, it roared in frustration, flailing its limbs wildly. "Humans! Even in battle, all you think about is attracting the opposite sex? You truly are inferior creatures. Die!" The enraged beast's power surged to its peak. Its writhing tentacles grew longer and more numerous, slamming into the ground with earth-shattering force. The impact created powerful shockwaves, sending hordes of wriggling, parasite-infested filth swarming toward Jui and Erin. Both of them froze in shock, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught. Jui charged forward aggressively, only to suddenly hesitate and turn back toward Erin. "Hey, don't you have the ability to control bodies too? Hurry up and control me so I can fight." Erin remained calm, silently clenching her fists. Jui continued, "I'm not afraid of parasites, but I don't actually know how to fight. The moment he finished speaking, Aaron executed a newly learned move, something she picked up from a rather stylish and charismatic fighter. Spinning 360 degrees, she unleashed a flurry of energy-infused silk threads from her fingertips. Pressing her eyelids shut, she smirked. Just so you know, I can't guarantee your safety, using Zhu Yi's body like a puppet. Multiple threads attached to his arms, legs, neck, and head. They swiftly merged with his cells, synchronizing with his every movement. Aaron leaned forward, raised both hands, and wiggled her small fingers, completely focused on the living tool before her. The corner of her lips curled into a confident, determined smile. Standing firmly in the middle of the hallway, she spread her legs for balance, extended her hands outward, and shouted, "Go!" Immediately, Zhu Yi dashed forward like the wind, covering long distances with each leap as he lunged at the monster. Meanwhile, the two female scientists, now fully controlled by the parasite, had lost all reason. Their eyes were completely white. Devoid of pupils, tentacles poured down around them, forming a grotesque path that bound their bodies, puppeteering them into battle. "You cannot escape my tentacles, no matter how fast you are," the monster boasted. As their bodies clashed, the creature grew more confident. "There's no way you can break through my battle matrix. The battlefield itself is under my control." Aaron's sharp fingers danced with precision, skillfully directing Zhu Yi's movements. Up ahead, where layers of the monster's outer membrane were peeling away, Zhu Yi used the surface as a foothold, launching himself into the air. At the crucial moment, he grabbed one of the scientists by the throat, using his momentum to prepare for a finishing blow. However, his plan was foiled. His target was yanked back just in time, causing his strike to miss. Zhu Yi landed smoothly, steadying himself as the manipulated scientist screamed mindlessly in a fit of madness. This was only the opening act. Aaron flexed her fingers, tightening her control. Zhu Yi, now nothing more than an extension of her will, instantly dashed forward at blinding speed. His movements nearly imperceptible. With expert precision, Aaron maneuvered him past the scientist's legs, forcing him into a low slide across the monster's red, parasite-infested membrane, dodging an incoming tentacle attack in the process. Planting his powerful hands on the ground, Zhu Yi effortlessly flipped himself into the air. He glanced back with a confident smirk. Behind him, the two female scientists scrambled to grab him, only to lunge too hard and nearly topple over from the missed attack. Zhu Yi darted past the two mind-controlled figures. They were nothing more than disposable pawns. Without hesitation, he charged straight toward the monster. The closer he got, the thicker and denser the parasitic virus became. The creature tensed up, its many grotesque eyes narrowing in confusion. How? How can you be moving this fast? Then, as realization struck, its eyes locked onto Aaron in the distance. "You. That woman. You're controlling him?" From afar, Aaron casually waved at the monster with a smug grin, even making a friendly gesture to provoke it further. Laughing heartily, she teased, "Too slow, huh?" Fueled by Aaron's control, Zhu Yi clenched his fists and lunged at the creature. The monster immediately braced itself, its thick outer body swelling defensively. This was it, the first major monster he was going to take down. Zhu Yi gathered every ounce of strength within him and roared, "Die!" As he swung his fist, the beast retaliated by releasing waves of parasitic viruses, but they had no effect on him. Zhu Yi was completely immune, and now, with Aaron's combat skills enhancing him, he felt unstoppable. The monster grew anxious. It instinctively shielded its weak, exposed head while trying to shake Zhu Yi's confidence. You're too weak. You'll never break through my defenses." But Zhu Yi's eyes burned with determination. He clenched his fists tighter, gritting his teeth as he pushed forward. Suddenly, a system notification popped up. Trait activation, elastic muscles. A status window appeared. His muscles flexed and stretched beyond their normal limits. Mucus secretion activated. Zhu Yi's fists became coated in a slimy green substance, the corrosive secretion of a mutant frog trait. Smirking, he realized he could combine his own abilities with Aaron's battle skills to finish the fight quickly. Ding! Corrosive mucus, fully active. With a final burst of strength, Zhu Yi slammed his enhanced fist into the monster's gut. The sheer force of the impact sent shockwaves rippling through the entire area. The creature reeled backward, its massive form shuddering from the devastating blow. Eyes wide with disbelief, it let out an ear-splitting screech. Erin, who had been watching closely, was momentarily stunned. She widened her eyes in shock. Wait. He was hiding another power all along? The place where Zhu Yi's fist had landed was now melting, flesh deteriorating at an alarming rate. A massive hole had been punched straight through the beast's abdomen. The monster's arms shot up, its body trembling from the pain. Staring at the gaping wound, it stammered in horror. De-dissolving? Impossible! How could you be this strong? Zhu Yi withdrew his hand. Dust and remnants of decay swirling around his feet, his gaze remained sharp and focused. There was no arrogance, just unwavering resolve. The monster, still shaking, tried to maintain its composure. This isn't over. You cannot kill me. I can transfer my wounds elsewhere. But as it attempted to do so, agony still racked its body. The largest of its eyes flickered downward, staring at its abdomen in growing panic. The wound wasn't closing. In fact, it was growing larger. The realization hit it like a ton of bricks. What? Why is the wound still there? It howled in despair. Meanwhile, Erin had taken advantage of the chaos. Without the monster noticing, she had successfully freed the two young scientists and placed them safely in a corner. Blood dripped from Erin's hands as she tightened her grip around something. A tangled mass of grotesque, spherical sacs. Meeting the monster's gaze, she smirked coldly. Sorry, but I already removed all of your parasitic stomachs. The two rescued scientists, though struggling to breathe, were still conscious. A stroke of luck. With a fierce grip, Erin clenched her small hand tightly, crushing the parasite-infested stomachs into a gruesome pulp. Blood splattered in all directions as she exerted her full strength to completely eradicate them. Only when there was nothing left did she finally relax her hand. Turning to the monster, Erin flashed a mischievous, taunting smile. Hee hee. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you'd look like as a preserved specimen. Her triumphant attitude struck a nerve. The monster's eyes narrowed at her in frustration, its grotesque mouth dripping with thick, greenish fluids. Grinding its massive, foul-smelling teeth together, it let out a deep, unsettling growl. An eerie, parasitic aura radiated outward, filling the air with an oppressive force. Instantly, the floating, disembodied heads hovering above reacted. They too began gnashing their teeth, emitting a chorus of unsettling, ghostly snarls. As the pressure intensified, the floating heads swelled, trembling violently in midair. Then, bang! They exploded in unison, spraying thick, dark blood in every direction. The sickly crimson mist spread rapidly, saturating the atmosphere with a suffocating stench. The entire scene was utterly nightmarish. Zhu Yi and Erin, caught off guard by the grotesque spectacle, stared in shock. This thing still has tricks up its sleeve! Their expressions shifted from smug confidence to grim seriousness. From the airborne explosion of blood, the monster arched its grotesque form backward, inhaling all of the scattered liquid back into its body. It was absorbing the blood, reclaiming energy to regenerate. Zhu Yi's eyes widened in horror. It's pulling the blood back? Before their eyes, the creature's form began mutating again. It grew larger, its body darkening into a pitch-black mass. A single, blood-red eye glowed menacingly at its center, exuding a feral, insatiable hunger. Through the shifting mass, the gaping wound in its abdomen was still visible. But it was changing. Erin and Zhu Yi stood their ground, their eyes locked onto the monstrous figure. Their instincts screamed at them to stay alert. They were both tense, simultaneously feeling an unsettling mix of dread and exhilaration. Before them, the entity no longer had a fixed shape. Instead, a massive surge of crimson mucus pulsated like ocean waves, rising and falling in a chaotic, unrelenting storm. It crackled and surged, resembling a massive, living inferno. Then, as if reaching a decision, the unstable, amorphous mass began to stabilize. It stretched and twisted, reshaping itself into a more defined form. A second later, a monstrous figure emerged from the shifting sludge. A grotesque, sprawling entity spread across the battlefield, its form both fluid and fire-like. Yet this was no ordinary blaze. This was a monster unlike anything they had encountered before. Its two gleaming, crimson eyes locked onto them with ravenous intent. The real fight was just beginning. A moment later, the formless, writhing mass had successfully transformed into a new, solid body. Its muscular arm, now a deep, blood red, was on an entirely different level compared to Zhu Yi's. The monster had returned, stronger and more terrifying than ever. It threw its massive, fanged mouth wide open and let out an ear-splitting roar. Its physique had evolved beyond its previous state. Now, it was a true war machine. No longer relying on conscious strategy, only raw combat instincts. Zhu Yi and Aaron's expressions darkened, their eyes narrowed in vigilance. Zhu Yi's lips twitched slightly. The creature's previously exposed, vulnerable brain was now fully encased in armor-like protection. Four glowing, razor-sharp eyes gleamed with untamed excitement. "For the first time, a human has lived long enough to see me in this form," it declared confidently. "I hope you won't disappoint me." Before the words even finished leaving its mouth, its massive crimson fist was already hurtling toward Aaron. A split second ago, she had been standing far away. Proof that this monstrosity had reached a terrifying new speed. By the time she even realized what was happening, its attack was already upon her. Aaron's eyes widened in shock. "So fast!" she gasped inwardly. Barely a fraction of a second passed, then, boom! The impact sent Aaron flying back dozens of meters. A single, devastating punch had launched her like a rag doll. The colossal beast remained in a defensive stance, unfazed, crashing violently into the hard wall behind her. Aaron shattered a section of the structure. Shards of glass and debris exploded outward from the force. Pain surged through her body. Too strong!" she cried out. Her limbs trembled from the shock. Zhu Yi, witnessing his teammate being sent flying in a single strike, stood frozen in disbelief, mouth agape. His mind went blank. The sheer force left him speechless. Aaron, though injured, clenched her teeth in frustration. Her mind raced. "Why? This thing is on an entirely different level from before. Its speed. It's ridiculous." She barely had time to process her pain. Just as she started to push herself back up, a massive crimson hand was already lunging toward her chest. Still reeling, Aaron had no time to react. The beast's monstrous grip closed around her head, then, with overwhelming force, it drove her entire body forward, slamming her face first into the floor. Pain exploded through her skull. She groaned as her vision blurred. From a distance, the sheer brutality of the attack was clear. The creature wasn't just attacking, it was humiliating her. Dragging her limp body across the ground, it carved a deep trench into the stone floor, its raw strength leaving scars in the battlefield itself. It was making sure she paid for her earlier taunts. Yet it wasn't done. The beast leaped high into the air, still holding Aaron in its grip, then, slam! Like tossing out a piece of trash, it hurled her into the ground with monstrous force. The entire area trembled from the impact. Dust and debris erupted into the air. Aaron's body lay motionless. Blood gushed from her lips. Her pale, exhausted face was drained of color. She had been battered relentlessly. Her arms, once steady, now trembled uncontrollably. The monster loomed over her broken form, towering in silence. A pitiful sight, curled up at the bottom of the crater, Aaron looked nothing like the cocky fighter she had been moments ago, the highs and lows of battle. Such was fate. Lowering its monstrous face toward her, the creature rumbled. "You struck me earlier." Then, shifting its four gleaming eyes, it turned its gaze to Zhu Yi, its cold expression twisted with cruel amusement. "You're next." It snarled. Zhu Yi stiffened, his hands clenched into fists. His mind raced. "Damn it!" he muttered under his breath. Panic crept into his thoughts. He hadn't yet figured out how to deal with this thing, and time was running out. In just a few unguarded seconds, the monster had closed in on Zhu Yi. Moving with terrifying speed, it grabbed him before he even had time to react. Its massive, blood-red body shot forward, its foot streaking across the ground in a sharp arc of light. Then, boom! A devastating kick slammed directly into Zhu Yi's face. Blood exploded from his mouth as he was sent spiraling through the air. A single, brutal strike had sent him rolling like a rag doll. His body crashed into the ground, hitting with bone-shattering force. Dust and debris erupted into the air. Zhu lay there, barely better off than Aaron. His broken form tumbled to a stop near the long-haired scientist. His limbs were twisted unnaturally. All his bones were shattered. His body reduced to a broken husk, a lifeless corpse, motionless. At that moment, a system notification appeared before him. Warning: all bones fractured, internal organs completely destroyed, fatal injuries detected, indestructible trait activated, regenerating damaged bones, restoring vital functions. A sudden, intense energy coursed through Zhu Yi's body. His foot, once mangled beyond recognition, began to twist and realign itself, spinning rapidly like a windmill as the system restored him. Within moments, his body was as good as new. His eyes snapped open. He inhaled sharply, gasping. "Shit! I almost died just now!" he yelled, but before he could even move, his system's AI materialized beside him, shouting in a stern voice. "Don't move! I can't guarantee I'll be able to save you if you take another hit like that." Hearing this, Zhu Yi's face turned pale with fear. His body was still weak, his mind panicked. He had no idea how to deal with this monster. Then, he had an idea. Lying completely still, he squeezed his eyes shut, pretending to be dead. Yes, if he didn't move, maybe it would ignore him, play dead. It was the only option he had left. Even with his monster-like regeneration, his strength and skills were nowhere near this creature's level. Right now, his only hope was Aaron. Peeking slightly out of one eye, he cast a desperate glance toward her. "Come on, big sis. You have to win this one." The dust settled. The monster's towering figure emerged from the haze, standing near Zhu Yi. Its stance was wide, fists clenched, eyes locked onto him. But Zhu Yi remained completely motionless, barely even breathing. The creature grinned, its jagged teeth gleaming. "So weak. Far too weak." It sneered. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted behind it. The monster flinched, startled, curious. It turned around, letting out a deep, questioning growl, only to be met with Aaron's fierce gaze. She was still standing, taking advantage of the distraction. Aaron launched herself forward. Her foot shot toward the back of the monster's neck in a lightning-fast strike, her sharp eyes locked onto its vulnerable brainstem. But just as she closed in, swish, a blur, the monster reacted. Instantly, its massive hand snapped out and caught Aaron's leg midair. Her body jerked to a halt. Her eyes went wide. "No way," she thought in shock. To the creature, she might as well have been a butterfly. Its four glowing eyes shone with ruthless intelligence. With one effortless swing, wham! It swatted her out of the air. Aaron barely had time to scream. She was nothing more than a plaything in its grasp. Her body twisted painfully, the impact knocking the wind out of her. With a cruel smile, the monster gripped her ankle. Then, like a rag doll, it began to swing her back and forth, hard, one side, then the other, then back again, slam, 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 over and over. Her body crashed against the ground. It was a merciless beating, a violent display of overwhelming strength. It was as if Aaron had become nothing more than a toy, battered, broken, and powerless. With a final, casual flick, the monster hurled her straight into the ceiling. Boom! Her body smashed against the hard surface. Then, she fell, and before she could even hit the ground, the monster caught her and threw her again. Like a ball, she was tossed through the air, over and over. Her body withered under the relentless assault. Her strength faded, her vision blurred. She was being toyed with like prey in the jaws of a predator, and she was running out of time. Erin's body slammed into the ceiling, her form plastered against it for a brief moment. Her hair and face drooped downward, streaked with fresh blood dripping relentlessly from her battered frame. She was completely spent, and with that, Zhu Yi's last hope flickered out. The monster let Erin be for a moment, turning its attention elsewhere. It reached down, grasping the very chair that Aaron and the two scientists had once used to restrain its parasitic form. Holding the chair up, it studied it for a moment. "You tied me to this thing," it rumbled. The words left its mouth just as Aaron's limp body detached from the ceiling. She plummeted downward. At that instant, the monster lifted the chair high. It aimed, its monstrous strength coiled, prepared to unleash one last, merciless strike. Aaron was still utterly motionless. but the beast did not relent. So irritating. The second Aaron neared the ground, crack. The chair shot forward, smashing directly into her abdomen. The sheer force splintered the chair into pieces, and sent Aaron's already battered body crashing against the wall. Bang! Her small frame slammed into the hard surface, blood sprayed from her mouth on impact, bricks cracked, debris flew in all directions. Her body stuck to the wall for a split second, then she slid down. A long, crimson smear marked her descent. Aaron slumped against the wall, completely drained. Her breath was ragged, barely more than dying gasps. KH. She coughed, weak and pained. Her limbs no longer obeyed her. She sat there, trembling, unable to move. She tried to focus, to assess her body. Humph. My legs. They're broken. Even so, even now, Aaron refused to surrender. She clenched her teeth, biting down the pain. Her eyes, burning with sheer determination, locked onto the monster. KH. But at least my arms should still work. Meanwhile, Zhu, still pretending to be dead, anxiously watched the situation unfold. The monster turned, its glowing eyes narrowing as it sensed Aaron still clinging to life. Slowly, it stalked toward her, intent on finishing what it started. Zhu Yi's thoughts spun frantically. Even the vice captain of the extermination squad can't beat this thing? Compared to her, he was nothing, a normal human. A few minor mutant abilities weren't nearly enough to stand against this creature. If he moved, he would die. Another hit like that, and not even his regenerative trait could save him. His teeth clenched. Damn it! Who else can save us? No one was coming. Instead of throwing himself into a hopeless fight, Zhu forced himself to think, a way to win, quickly. Then, a voice, weak, faint, right beside him. Hey. You. Zhu Yi's eyes widened, he turned. The long-haired scientist, she was still alive, barely. Her trembling body lay sprawled on the floor, yet, despite her own pain, she extended a small, shaking hand toward him. In her palm, a small, red stone. She struggled to speak, her voice frail. Take this. To Aaron. Let her. Unleash her. True power. A spirit stone, something that could turn the tide. After the scientist handed Zhu a small piece of magic stone to give to Aaron, Zhu stared at it in deep thought. He firmly accepted the red magic stone. While pretending to be dead, Zhu secretly glanced at the monster and thought, how can I throw this magic stone to her? The monster believed he was dead and paid no attention to him. Suddenly, the god of cockroaches appeared and offered Zhu some advice. If you use the flexibility of your muscles right now, you might still have a chance. Just follow my calculations. It said. Then, it made a judgment. The highest probability of success is only 10%. Zhu flinched at the result and blurted out. 10% is the best I can get? How is that any different from death? The god of cockroaches sternly warned. A 10% chance of survival or a 100% chance of getting crushed. Choose one. Gritting his teeth at the answer, Zhu had already made his decision. He slowly stood up and muttered. Damn it! The system activated, using muscle flexibility. Immediately, his body underwent a drastic change. His muscles expanded, even tearing his clothes apart. Zhu let out a powerful roar and then sprinted at full speed toward the monster. Sensing the movement, the monster turned its head to look at him. The god of cockroaches anxiously reported. The monster reacted sooner than expected. The success rate has dropped to 5%. But that didn't shake Zhu determination. He pushed himself to run even faster, gambling with his life. This was all or nothing now. Using his flexibility, Zhu easily leaped over the massive monster's head. It stared at him in confusion. The god of cockroaches urgently warned. Only 1% left! At that moment, Zhu decisively threw the magic stone, praying for success. But Aaron, exhausted from her fierce battle with the monster, remained motionless. Despite his muscle flexibility, it wasn't enough to escape. The monster easily grabbed his leg, freezing him in place. He didn't even get the chance to throw the magic stone. In a deep voice, the monster asked, What do you think you're doing? Zhu Yi was speechless. Panic and chaos filled his mind. What should he do now? 0%. The god of cockroaches whispered just as the monster hurled Zhu Yi violently to the ground. It slowly approached him as he lay motionless on the floor. Blood dripped from his head, pain coursing through his body. The monster stood over him, lifting its massive foot above Zhu Yi's body, grinning in satisfaction. But Zhu Yi's eyes burned with determination. Who said the success rate was only 0%? This was the real final opportunity. It seemed as if everything had been part of Zhu Yi's plan. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Take it!" and hurled the magic stone with precise accuracy. At the same moment, the monster ruthlessly stomped down on his body, shaking the entire floor and leaving a deep dent. It sneered in amusement, believing Zhu Yi to be dead. Too weak. But then, a flicker of shock appeared in the monster's eyes. It hesitated before stammering, "There's a problem." Beneath its foot, a purple spiderweb had formed, acting as a shield to protect Zhu Yi. The monster ground its teeth in frustration. Its moment of victory had been ruined. A spiderweb? It's that girl. On the other side, a slender figure emerged, surrounded by the same purple threads. "You risked your life just to give me the magic stone?" she said. There was no mistaking her. Eren had arrived, wrapped in her web-like defense. Her voice carried a sense of gratitude as she added, "I'm truly touched." At that moment, sharp claws extended from Eren's fingertips. She skillfully manipulated the spiderwebs, binding the monster tightly in an instant. Caught off guard, the monster crashed to the ground. Without wasting a second, Eren's right arm morphed into a sharp, drill-like weapon. She pointed it at the monster and commanded, "Snow spider sword, unsheath!" Hatred burned in her eyes as she declared, "Monster, just die already!" But just as she was about to strike, an overwhelming force gripped her arm. Her eyes widened in shock. What? The monster had grabbed her right arm, making it tremble from the sheer pressure. With an eerie calm, it spoke. "You think you can wield my power, human?" It then reached for the sharp tip of her weapon and scoffed. "Pathetic, still far too weak." With a mere flick of its wrist, the monster snapped her weapon in half. Eren gasped in disbelief. Before she could react, the monster's claws wrapped around her throat. Then, in one swift motion, it plunged its razor-sharp talons straight through her stomach. Blood splattered everywhere. From afar, Zhu Yi struggled to his feet, his body battered and bruised. He clutched his injured arm as his eyes widened in horror. He had just seen Eren impaled by the monster's sharp claws. She dangled helplessly from its special limb. Motionless, his mind raced in panic. Is this truly the end? The monster let out a triumphant laugh, relishing its victory as it raised its voice to finish her off. "Die!" But suddenly, a deafening slash rang out. The monster screamed in shock as both its arms were severed. At the same time, a mysterious figure rushed forward, grabbing Eren and carrying her away. Furious, the monster turned in their direction, growling with rage. Zhu Yi, barely holding on, also turned to see where it was looking. The person who had saved Eren was Fellow, holding her unconscious, severely injured body in his arms. At that moment, two more figures, a man and a woman, descended beside him. They seemed to be Fellow's teammates. The monster snarled from a distance, "Who are you people?" The three newcomers met its glare without fear. They were Haley, Corey Villiers, and Fellow. Haley glanced to the side and spotted the unconscious scientists lying on the ground. She hurried over to examine them, then muttered, "This is horrible. Their organs, bones, and veins are shattered. It's like their bodies were turned into mush." Haley was the captain of Squad 10 of Leaf Assassins and possessed healing abilities. Without hesitation, she summoned a glowing jade-green magic stone and said firmly, "I need to treat them immediately." Fellow, the captain of Squad 2, nodded and reassured her. "Don't worry too much, no monster will get past me to harm you." Meanwhile, Corey, the commander-in-chief, stretched his arms and grinned. "I'll take care of playing with this monster for a bit. It's pretty rare to see one that can talk." Just then, Eren, still cradled in Fellow's arms, regained consciousness. Weakly, she gasped out a warning. "Commander!" This monster is different, please be careful. Corey turned back to her with a confident smile. Don't worry, I'm special too. As Haley concentrated on healing the scientists, she suddenly snapped. Both of you, shut up! I need silence to focus on treatment. With that, she closed her eyes, channeling the power of the magic stone. From beneath the floor, green sprouts began to break through the ground. Regeneration! Large flowers bloomed, one encasing the unconscious female scientist within its petals. Another flower formed for the second scientist. Next, Fellow gently placed Erin, who was gravely wounded, onto a flower of her own for treatment. And finally, the last person to step forward for healing was Zhu Yi, the only one still conscious. Though surprised, he trusted the process and laid down inside the flower, thinking, flowers? The moment his body settled in, a wave of soothing warmth engulfed him. It felt like soaking in a hot spring. Within moments, he drifted into a deep sleep. Suddenly, the god of cockroaches appeared. Fuming with anger. Don't pass out! It snapped. I'm injecting adrenaline! A sharp jab pierced Zhu Yi's skin. It hurts! He wailed, nearly crying from the pain. As Haley continued using her healing magic, she noticed Zhu Yi crying out and flailing his arms in distress. Frowning in confusion, she muttered, It doesn't even hurt. Meanwhile, the god of cockroaches watched with great satisfaction as Zhu Yi lay there, exhausted and dazed. You're really lucky, kid, it remarked. Now open your eyes and witness the top combat power in the world today. On the other side of the battlefield, Corey Villiers strode confidently toward the massive monster, with a calm demeanor. He casually initiated negotiations. I'm Corey Villiers, Commander-in-Chief of the Extermination Corps. If you understand human speech, why don't we just talk? The monster bared its fangs in a menacing snarl and snapped back. We do not communicate with food. The moment those words left the monster's mouth, an eerie silence fell over the entire area. Then, without warning, thick red slime began seeping down from the cracks in the walls. Corey narrowed his eyes, watching the strange substance flow, puzzled by its sudden appearance. But the oozing slime only grew thicker, spreading faster. From the ever-expanding pools of sludge, monstrous figures began to take form. The monster smirked and declared, I have devoured all of my kin who were imprisoned here. Its voice rang with absolute confidence as it made its chilling proclamation. And now, all of you will die in this place. The moment it finished speaking, the grotesque sludge-born creatures lunged forward in unison. With deafening, crazed screams, they charged straight at the extermination corps. As the monstrous roars echoed through the air, Zhu Yi, still lying within the healing flower, widened his eyes in alarm at the sheer number of enemies surrounding them. So many monsters! He exclaimed, his voice laced with urgency. Above, below, left, right, everywhere, it's all monsters! At that moment, Fellow was already in full battle mode, his muscular frame tensed as he spun his arms, generating powerful gusts of wind. In just an instant, an unstoppable cyclone formed, sweeping through the horde of monsters, making them shriek in agony. Some of the wind swirled strategically around the healing zone, forming a protective vortex to shield Haley, who was still deep in concentration. Zhu Yi, watching in awe, muttered, This wind! It's become a tornado barrier! Seeing the fierce storm, the monsters hesitated, unwilling to recklessly charge forward anymore. Fellow, standing guard at the front, was the one responsible for summoning the storm. Without turning back, he called out to Haley. Haley, while I can hold these monsters back, I can't do anything about the stench of blood, so bear with it. Without breaking her focus, Haley sighed and begrudgingly accepted the situation. Fine, I'll forgive you this time, you useless brute. Zhu Yi was stunned by the overwhelming strength displayed before him. So this is the true power of a squad captain? He thought in disbelief. Outside the cyclone barrier, only Corey remained face to face with the massive monster. The beast growled, its glowing eyes locked onto Corey. Impressive, since the two captains have blocked my path, I'll deal with you first. The red sludge that had been oozing from the walls began to morph, forming more humanoid monsters. With a deafening roar, the sludge surged toward the creature's severed arms, fusing together in a grotesque reconstruction. a thick red mist erupted from its body, clouding Corey's vision, making it impossible to see what was happening inside. Then, boom! A thunderous roar shook the ground as the monster underwent its third transformation. When the smoke cleared, Ju Yi's eyes widened in horror. The beast had grown hundreds of times larger than before. Compared to it, Corey looked like nothing more than an insect. Ju Yi's heart pounded in his chest. 3 transformations? This thing is seriously disgusting. But Corey, standing before the colossal monstrosity, remained unfazed. In fact, he even smirked and praised the creature. I'm kinda jealous, you know? Being able to change your size at will, that's pretty cool. Then, with mocking amusement, he quipped, Uncle, I want to grow big like that too. Looks like I'll need to do a lot more warm-ups at home. The monster, annoyed by Corey's lack of fear, didn't bother responding with words. Instead, it let out a low, guttural growl before raising a massive fist, bringing it down toward Corey with full force. Corey, completely unfazed, casually tilted his head, dodging the attack with ease. Then, grinning, he teased, Oh wow, you were so close. The monster snarled in frustration, throwing another attack, but Corey effortlessly leaped into the air, flipping midair to avoid the blow. Then, in one fluid motion, he ducked under a follow-up strike, and then another, and another. His agile movements made him impossible to catch. Like a slippery insect avoiding a predator's grasp, the monster, now beyond enraged, roared in frustration. You cowardly pest! Stop dodging and fight me properly! But just as Corey was about to land, the monster's hidden tentacle-like appendages shot toward him from behind. Whip! The tentacle coiled around Corey's waist, tightening with immense strength. For the first time, a flicker of surprise crossed Corey's face. The monster let out a triumphant cackle, yanking Corey toward its gaping maw. You're finished! It bellowed, but Corey didn't panic. With a calm expression, he simply reached behind his back and drew his sword. Then, slash! 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 A series of lightning-fast sword strikes flashed through the air. The monster's screams of agony filled the room, and before it even realized what had happened, Corey landed gracefully on the ground. The battlefield fell silent. The monster's gargantuan form trembled violently. Then, splatter! Its entire body was suddenly reduced to pieces, cut apart in a mere instant. Only a small fragment of its torso remained intact. The monster lay there, stunned, its eyes filled with disbelief. What just happened? The monster was so terrified of Corey that just seeing his finger pointing at it made its entire body tremble uncontrollably. With just a snap of his fingers, Corey shredded what remained of the monster's body, scattering it into the air like dust. As he watched the slimy remains drip onto the floor, a particular tiny organism fell among them, something unusual. It was the very thing that had allowed the monster to speak human language. Corey's hand shot out instantly, catching it before it could escape. Holding the small creature inside a glass vial, Corey suddenly burst into joyful laughter. I got it! I got it! He shouted, raising the vial high, waving enthusiastically toward his teammates. He excitedly announced, I've successfully captured the first ever talking monster in history. Should I name it or something? Both Haley and Fellow were so infuriated by his ridiculous statement that they simultaneously rolled their eyes. Haley, completely exasperated, snapped at him. Is this really the time for you to be playing around? You should be thinking about how to explain to the council why the newly built research facility has now been completely destroyed. Meanwhile, Zhui, still inside the healing flower, curiously peeked out. He was just in time to witness Fellow and Haley yelling in unison. You idiotic superior! Zhui muttered under his breath. This is just too much power. At that moment, the cockroach god suddenly appeared, eerily calm. Do you feel the difference? It asked. Then, with a tone of finality, it added, Alright, that's enough, you can pass out now. Before Zhui could even process what was happening, his vision turned pitch black. By the time he regained consciousness, it was late at night. He found himself in a neatly arranged apartment, but something felt off. Zhui slowly opened his heavy eyelids, struggling to wake up. Then, as his senses returned, he realized something extremely strange. He was soaking in a bathtub, his cheeks flushed red as his half-dazed mind tried to make sense of it. Where am I? He murmured, confused. As he adjusted to his surroundings, a sudden realization hit him. Why am I in a bathtub? He blurted out, his voice echoing in the bathroom, but then, he felt something off. His heart skipped a beat as his gaze shifted slightly. Beyond the thin, translucent shower curtain, a faint silhouette could be seen, a woman, taking a shower. Zhu Yi's face turned as red as a tomato, his heartbeat pounded wildly in his chest, his mind screamed in panic. What the hell is happening? Zhu Yi was in a state of panic, unable to comprehend what was happening. When the girl behind the curtain turned out to be none other than Erin, she pulled the curtain slightly aside, peeking out in surprise upon seeing him awake. So you've finally woken up? Erin remained completely unfazed, standing nude before Zhu Yi, though not fully exposed. Only a thin layer of mist covered her, she calmly explained. Since your genetic test results aren't out yet, you have to be detained for another night. But since the prison has been severely damaged, I had no choice but to bring you back to my place. Zhu Yi shrank back, his face burning red as he stared at her in shock, stammering. He asked, Do we really have to be in this soaked and naked state together? Annoyed, Erin crossed her arms over her chest and retorted, You're such a coward. Right now is the only time hot water is available. What would you do if you didn't bathe with me? She then introduced herself formally. I'm Erin, Vice Captain of the 1st Extermination Squad. Thanks for your help back there. What's your name? Let's get to know each other. Still flustered, Zhu Yi hesitantly replied. I guess you can call me Zhu Yi. Erin then casually instructed. All right, buddy, move in a little. Without waiting for his response, she stepped into the bathtub, the forest scent water splashing everywhere. Now sitting in the bath with him, Erin seemed completely at ease. Though they faced each other, Zhu Yi was too embarrassed to make eye contact. Despite her nonchalant attitude, Erin showed concern for his well-being. Turn around and sit still, let me check your injuries. As she touched his back, Zhu Yi felt his face heating up even more. His thoughts ran wild. Her awareness of personal boundaries between men and women is way too low. If she keeps this up, Before his imagination could go any further, Erin's voice interrupted. All right, I'm done. Your back is completely healed, not even a scar left. You must have some impressive abilities yourself. She playfully patted his shoulder like an old friend. Making him jump, suddenly, the mechanical voice of the cockroach god rang in his mind. I detected that your heart rate has reached 120 beats per minute. A large amount of male hormones have been released. Blood is beginning to concentrate in the lower region. Should I activate the reproduction mode for you? Zhu Yi, feeling like he had been utterly exposed, turned even redder and furiously refused. No! Absolutely not! Just then, Erin's voice cut through his awkward exchange with the cockroach god. Hey, look at this scar on my chest. That monster was really cruel. She pointed at the wound and continued. Even though the captain healed me, the scar still remains. If you don't believe me, see for yourself. Zhu Yi was left dumbfounded, his jaw practically dropping at the sight before him. The cockroach god's voice echoed again. Reproduction mode activation in progress. Countdown, 5, 4, 3. The moment it reached 2. Zhu Yi bolted out of the bathtub in a panic. Zhu Yi slammed the bathroom door shut, calling out as he left. I have urgent business. You just finished your bath. His sudden departure left the room in silence, with Erin still sitting in the bathtub, stunned and completely confused. Leaning against the door, Zhu Yi panted heavily, his face burning with embarrassment. Frustrated, he scolded the cockroach god. If I had stayed even a second longer, I would have died socially on the spot. What the hell were you doing, system? Meanwhile, a male news anchor on the TV was reporting. Recently, violent disturbances have occurred near Manhwa City. About 50 kilometers away, state-controlled security bases have also been attacked by unknown forces. Zhu Yi stared blankly at the broadcast. That place. Isn't that where I used to live? His heart pounded. Does this mean everyone is dead? The news continued showing images of Manhwa City, now in ruins. Due to the sudden attack, the extermination squad responded immediately to the distress call. However, no survivors were found in the small security base. Zhu watched the footage closely. Feeling a wave of relief, if I hadn't left that place, I might have been killed by the monsters too, the broadcast continued. Once again, we remind all citizens that the abyss is a passage to another world. If you find any clues or notice anything unusual, please report it to the relevant authorities immediately. Frozen in place, Zhu sat stiffly on the sofa, his mind blank. At that moment, the cockroach god appeared at just the right time to reassure him. Stop overthinking the world. Isn't full of what ifs here. I have some good news for you. A system notification appeared. Fatty, the good friend you crushed to death, has been revived. The screen displayed Guardian King revival rate, 100%. Below it were two options, summon or recall. Guardian King? Zhu muttered in disbelief. The cockroach god, floating beside him, grinned with satisfaction. From now on, Fatty is immortal, no matter how many times he's killed. As long as you remain his master, he can resurrect infinitely. Zhu frowned as he read the details carefully, then muttered, Sounds intense. But how can a cockroach with infinite resurrections be useful as a bodyguard? The cockroach god calmly explained. Fatty can be continuously upgraded. For now, he can share his vision with you. After a moment of hesitation, Zhu selected summon. The system screen flickered. Gradually, Fatty's image moved. The cockroach, upon seeing Zhu, cried out emotionally. Boss! I missed you so much! Then, after taking a good look at Zhu current appearance, Fatty flinched and muttered in disappointment. Boss! Why do you look so ugly these days? You actually look like a human now. Zhu was left speechless. The cockroach god added. You can send him anywhere you want, just close your eyes, and you'll be able to see through his perspective. Fatty excitedly zoomed around the room. Zhu had no idea what he was trying to do, until suddenly, the little cockroach darted straight under the gap of another door. So that was the bathroom. Fatty flew in, hovering high above as he watched Aaron soaking in the bathtub. By the time Zhu realized where his little companion had gone, he panicked and shouted, Where the hell are you flying to? Get out of there right now! But Fatty, having deliberately entered the room for this exact reason, calmly replied, Boss, I think you actually wanted to take a peek. At that moment, Aaron noticed Fatty's presence. Without hesitation, she raised her hand and shot out a web, ensnaring the cockroach instantly. Fatty struggled in panic, but within moments, his tiny body melted away under the corrosive threads and ascended to cockroach heaven. Zhu, though outside, had witnessed everything unfold. His eyes widened in horror. Blood immediately spurted from his nose, and he collapsed backward. The cockroach god, seeing Zhu lying pale and trembling on the floor, suddenly remembered something and hurriedly added, Oh, I forgot to mention, when you and Fatty share emotions, if he dies, you suffer backlash too. The next day, on a bustling city street, a test report was slammed onto the table. Aaron, arms crossed, looked at Zhu, who was calmly eating breakfast. Your test results are out, she said. Everything came back normal. Zhu picked up the file and skimmed through it. Then, Aaron's voice softened slightly. You're free to go now. A glint of thought flickered through Zhu's eyes. He set the report down and stood up with determination. I want to join the extermination squad. Aaron raised an eyebrow in surprise. The fatality rate in our squad is extremely high. Zhu countered immediately. Isn't the death rate high for ordinary people too? His eyes burned with resolve as he pressed on. I have an awakened ability. I fought alongside you before, and my record is completely clean. Am I qualified to join? Aaron studied him carefully, taking his words into consideration. Eventually, she relented. The extermination squad only recruits once every 4 years. The selection trial is in 7 days. While your skills aren't bad, there are rumors. She paused. This year is expected to be the most challenging selection process in history. Zhu frowned, sensing the gravity of the situation. After a moment, he cautiously asked for her help. Vice Captain Aaron, please think of a way to help me. I don't believe you're the kind of shameless person who'd ignore repaying a life-saving favor to her benefactor. Erin lowered her gaze for a second before suddenly standing up. With an excited grin, she praised. I admire your shamelessness. Fine. I'll give you a chance. One special training program. Not far away, someone had been secretly observing their entire conversation. That person was none other than Corey. Beside him, a scientist curiously asked, Captain, why did you instruct me to falsify Zhu Yi's medical report? Lowering his voice, the scientist added nervously. His genetic test results indicate he isn't human. But Corey remained silent. As if lost in thought, after a moment he finally spoke, his words laced with hidden intent. Let the bullet fly a little longer. After the conversation with Erin inside the training base, a colossal circular gate stood in the center. This was the entrance to Shenzhou Abyss. Zhu Yi followed Erin inside, only to stop in his tracks, utterly shocked. What? Despite his outrage, Erin remained as cheerful as ever. Your special training is to throw me straight into the abyss? Are you kidding me? His voice was filled with disbelief. The abyss was crawling with terrifying monsters, and the creatures inside were on a completely different level compared to those on the surface. People said that even an entire army venturing in would face a high mortality rate. How the hell am I supposed to level up in there? Zhu Yi's mind raced with visions of horrifying monsters, each more terrifying than the last. Then, he turned to size up his future teammates. There were only 5 of them in total, 4 guys and 1 girl. The tallest and most muscular man was Justin. The only female member was named Lu Yi. A scholarly-looking young man was Su Kai. And finally, the youngest, almost childlike, was Song Tao. At that moment, Erin spoke up. The abyss, she began, is filled with countless tunnels created by giant insects during the disaster. She continued explaining. Each abyss connects to another world, depending on how unstable that space is. The abyss is ranked from E to S, E being the easiest and S being the most dangerous. Then came the warning. The higher the level, the stronger the monsters and the more unpredictable the space becomes. She turned toward the Shenzhou gate behind her. Through this gate, you will enter an abyss that the extermination squad has already explored. With a simple press on the control panel, the screen beeped in response. Erin chuckled lightly. The mission of the extermination squad is to enter the abyss, eliminate monsters, and prevent invasions from other worlds. She raised a red mana stone as an example. Killing abyssal creatures helps our mana weapons grow stronger. Then, she activated the Shenzhou gate. With a deep hum, the massive portal slowly opened. Erin stood confidently in front of it and announced, The Shenzhou gate is now open. Then she gave her command. Justin, you have the most experience in deep abyss operations. You will be team captain and lead the squad. Justin nodded with unwavering seriousness. Understood. Inside the abyss, silent forest, danger level, E, beyond the dimensional gate, the Kill Abyss training team entered the silent forest, classified as an E-rank danger zone. As soon as the 5 of them arrived, they realized something. They were lost. The forest stretched endlessly in every direction, with no clear landmarks or exit. For Zhu Yi, it was his first time experiencing this. His eyes widened in amazement. Holy crap, so this is the abyss? Suddenly, a snake-tailed monkey sensed the presence of humans and leapt onto a tree branch. Its slit-like pupils fixated on them. Zhu Yi gasped. No way that thing actually exists? Before he could process it, a giant spider emerged from the shadows. The monstrous arachnid towered over them, its many gleaming eyes reflecting their movements. Zhu Yi's breath hitched. That thing is huge! Zhu Yi looked around, mouth agape in amazement. The trees here are gigantic! So tall! He ran around the forest, scouting the area, leaving the entire Kill Abyss training team speechless. Are we still on Earth? Walking through that gate feels like stepping into another world. True to its name, the silent forest was eerily quiet. Justin led the team from the front, while Zhu Yi stayed at the back. Suddenly, Justin turned around and tossed his supply bag at Zhu Yi, making him confused. With a stern expression, Justin warned, Brat, you're not allowed to touch a single monster in the abyss. All you need to do is follow us and carry our luggage. Jui looked at him in confusion, unaware that Justin was actually seething with jealousy. This punk spent the night with Instructor Aaron? Damn it, who gave you permission to approach my goddess? Hearing Justin's words, Zhu Yi's face darkened. Seeing his reaction, Justin hesitated for a moment and asked nervously, What? You don't want to do it? Contrary to his expectations, Zhu Yi beamed with joy. Perfect. I promise I won't touch a single monster. I'll be a diligent support member. Justin was dumbfounded. This kid. Is there something wrong with his brain? Zhu Yi cheerfully waved at Su Kai and Song Tao. Come on, big bros, give me all your backpacks. Then he turned to Lu Yi, grinning. Hand over your bag too. Before he could finish his sentence, Lu Yi immediately rejected him. No need, I'll carry it myself. Zhu Yi was secretly delighted with his new role. As an ordinary person, I totally understand why they don't want me to fight monsters. But what risk am I really taking here? That was until he saw the awakened ability users in action. A moment later, Lu Yi activated her power, her entire body surrounded by crackling lightning. She used her skill. Heaven's Wrath, Thunderstorm Cloak. The monsters around her shrieked in pain as they were electrocuted. Meanwhile, Justin's eyes burned with killing intent. Die! He roared, swinging his sword. Instantly, the monsters were sliced clean in half. Zhu Yi hid in a corner, watching them battle. So this is the power of magic stone weapons. When they kill monsters in the abyss, they can absorb the supernatural energy inside them. He saw Lu Yi raise her staff, drawing out the essence of the fallen snake-tailed monkey. Justin did the same, his sword absorbing energy from the defeated creatures. This is just like grinding experience points in video games. The more monsters they kill, the faster they level up. An hour later, even the most outstanding awakened ability users in the training team were exhausted from continuously hunting monsters. Justin clung to his sword as it absorbed energy, panting heavily. 310 kills. Finally, I leveled up. He muttered weakly, but Zhu Yi was different. From a distance, he watched Justin with a smile, tucking a white napkin into his collar. Below the table, his hands skillfully cut a piece of snake-tailed monkey meat with a knife and fork. Then, he took a big bite, savoring it as if he were on vacation. Suddenly, a system notification popped up. New trait acquired, long-armed snake monkey. However, Zhu Yi ignored it, too engrossed in enjoying his meal. I just need to eat a piece of a monster to acquire its traits. Whether I kill it or not, as long as I eat it, I gain its abilities. After another bite, the system chimed again. Trait acquired, poison resistance, highly recommended trait. Zhu Yi continued eating, and the system kept notifying him. Trait acquired, jungle adaptation, highly recommended trait. Trait acquired, sunlight absorption. Finishing his meal, Zhu Yi sighed, rubbing his stomach, which was now so full that his shirt couldn't completely cover it. Lazily lying down, surrounded by leftover bones, he closed his eyes and thought to himself, I've made my decision. Even if I join the kill squad, I'll stick to logistics. It's amazing to see others work so hard while I get stronger just by eating. The Roach God chimed in smugly. Now praise the greatness of the Roach God. Zhu Yi cheered. Long live the Roach God. The rest of the Kill Abyss training team looked at him in complete confusion. They were all exhausted from battling monsters, and yet this guy was leisurely enjoying a feast? Annoyed, they all had the same thought. What the hell is he doing? At the break of dawn, the silent forest suddenly emitted an unusual aura. The thunderous sound of powerful footsteps shattered the eerie silence. It was coming from a raging beast, the horned beast, ferociously chasing something. Turns out, it was charging straight at the snake-tailed Monkey King. Yet, instead of retreating, the Monkey King roared even louder in defiance. But in the end, it was no match. The horned beast effortlessly clamped its jaws onto the Monkey King's head and hurled it into the air. Hiding behind a rocky outcrop not far away, Zhu Yi watched the entire scene unfold in shock. His face turned pale as he blurted out, "That's the final boss of the Silent Forest, the Horned Beast." No wonder it took down the snake-tailed Monkey King so easily. Even though it's only half a rank stronger, the power gap is still overwhelming. Beside him, Justin remained calm and suddenly spoke up. We'll win, as long as everyone follows my plan. We, rookies, will be the ones to take down the boss. Zhu Yi's face tensed, his eyes filled with doubt. He recalled Aaron's warning before they left. If you recklessly challenge a boss, you'll be violating the rules if you get injured, crippled, or killed. Medical insurance won't cover it. Immediately, Zhu Yi tried to stop Justin's reckless plan. Didn't Aaron forbid us from fighting bosses? I'm not joining this. Justin scowled at his resistance, grabbed Zhu Yi by the collar, and growled. Trash like you doesn't get a say in this. Just get your useless self to the safe zone and watch over our backpacks. Standing behind them, Lu Yi remained silent but couldn't help but agree with Zhu Yi's concerns. Justin then pulled out the map, pointing at a marked location. Sit here and don't move, understood? Unable to convince them, Zhu Yi had no choice but to split from the team. He hoisted the heavy bags over his shoulders and said, All right then, good luck guys. Meanwhile, Su Kai and Song Tao exchanged sly, knowing smirks as if hiding some secret agenda. At that moment, Lu Yi hesitated before cautiously asking, Captain, isn't that the exact spot we planned to ambush the boss? Justin smirked triumphantly, his eyes gleaming with deception. That's right, and I stuffed all 4 of Zhu Yi's bags full of explosives. The moment the boss targets him, I'll trigger the detonator. It was a sinister plan driven purely by jealousy. Lu Ye's expression darkened, even though she didn't particularly like Zhu Yi. Seeing him get set up like this made her furious. You're despicable, she snapped. But before she could react further, Justin's face twisted into something cold and menacing. In a flash, he pressed a dagger against her throat. Su Kai and Song Tao froze in shock. Justin's voice dropped into a dangerous growl. Take back that self-righteous nonsense. My patience has its limits, so I'll let this slide just once. Sometime later, at the safe zone, Zhu Yi had finally reached his assigned location. Completely oblivious to Justin's plan, he was busy fiddling with the remains of a dead monster, but suddenly, boom! A massive tremor shook the ground, making Zhu Yi's eyes widen in alarm. Damn, is their battle really that intense? The shockwaves reached all the way here? He stood at the edge of the shadowy forest, uneasiness creeping up his spine, and then, he felt it, something was coming, fast. Zhu Yi's eyes darted to the dark silhouettes hurtling toward him at breakneck speed. When he finally got a clear look, it was a horde of snake-tailed monkeys. They were frantically fleeing, as if running from something terrifying beyond comprehension, and from the way their bodies trembled. Even Zhu Yi couldn't see what it was. But whatever it was getting closer. Immediately, a massive tree was violently struck by something, causing it to topple over. Zhu Yi whipped his head toward the source of the noise, and his heart nearly stopped. The horned beast's boss was charging straight at him. Before he could react, the beast's massive horn pierced right through his stomach. A splurt of fresh blood gushed from his mouth. The beast, showing no signs of stopping, bulldozed through the thick trees, tearing through the forest with relentless force. It didn't stop running, not until it crashed headfirst into the rocky mountainside. By then, Zhu Yi's mouth and nose were drenched in blood. His mind swirled with confusion. A boss? Why? Is it here? Through the pain, he forced his eyes open. At that moment, the cockroach god appeared, scolding him furiously. Idiot! If you get impaled like that, your first instinct should be to push the foreign object out and start healing. But then, the deity hesitated, coughed awkwardly, and asked, Wait a second. Where are your teammates? Did they all die already? Before Zhu Yi could process those words, an arrow, engulfed in flames, came whistling through the air. It was aimed with precision, striking one of the explosive-filled bags lying next to the still-stunned horned beast. Zhu Yi, dazed, weakly turned his head, his vision blurred, his thoughts muddled. A fire arrow. Wait. It came from my teammate's bag. His eyes locked onto the bag, then he realized, explosives, boom. A deafening explosion erupted, accompanied by a blinding flash of light. Everything vanished into darkness. Zhu Yi's consciousness drifted in the void. A bitter thought surfaced in his mind. I got abandoned by my teammates again, not just abandoned. They used me as bait to lure the boss. A distance away, 4 figures stood at a safe distance, watching the colossal explosion unfold. Justin, leading the group, threw his head back and laughed maniacally. Did you guys see that idiot's final expression? Priceless! Hilarious! He grinned smugly and continued. Once the explosion settles, we'll finish off the boss while it's low on health. A perfect 2-in-1 strategy. But then, Lu Ye's eyes suddenly widened in horror. She bolted forward, pointing at the scene, and shouted, Captain? Look! Justin followed her gaze, and his smug expression shattered as the smoke from the explosion began to clear. 2 figures emerged, a man and a beast, and the man. Was Zhu Yi still alive? Justin's face twisted in disbelief. What? He's still alive? Zhu Yi felt different. His body felt stronger, denser, as if something inside him had awakened. With a deep breath, he grabbed onto the massive horn lodged in his body and yanked it out. A gut-wrenching squelch filled the air. Pain racked his entire body, making him tremble uncontrollably, yet the gaping wound instantly regenerated, as if it had never existed. He clenched his fists, then he turned to face Justin's group. His eyes burned with rage. You really think? Before he could finish his sentence, Zhu Yi suddenly grabbed the enormous boss beast, and with overwhelming strength, he lifted it into the air. Justin's breath caught in his throat. His smug grin disappeared. He gritted his teeth, his mind racing. This isn't possible! Zhu Yi's voice boomed. Do you really think I'm that easy to bully? And with that, he hurled the massive horned beast directly at them. The moment before the throw, Zhu Yi took a deep breath, his mind regaining clarity. His voice was low and cold as he murmured to himself, Did I do something to you? Have we ever met before? Why would you try to kill me? His gaze burned with fury. A cold, mechanical voice suddenly echoed in his mind. System notification. Serpent-tailed monkey's long arms activated. Instantly, bulging veins surfaced all over Zhu Yi's body. With a powerful heave, he pushed the horned beast's horn out of his stomach. The serpent-tailed monkey's arms could lift objects tens of thousands of times their own weight, though he successfully pulled the horn free. His entire body trembled uncontrollably from the pain. At the same time, another system notification rang out. Adaptability to the jungle activated. The effect of the skill was greatly enhanced due to the dense forest environment. Solar enhancement activated. The bright daylight amplified his abilities even further. Zhu Yi let out a deep, guttural breath. Then, he lifted the colossal boss monster over his head. Justin's expression contorted in disbelief. His fingers twitched, his jaw clenched, his mind raced with panic. From below the mountain, the horned beast boss was suddenly flung into the air and hurled toward them like a meteor. Boom! The earthquake-like impact sent dust and debris flying everywhere. Justin quickly raised his arm to shield himself from the flying rubble. As the thick smoke and dust cleared, a faint voice called out, Captain H, help me! It was Song Tao, the crushed Song Tao. He was half buried beneath the massive beast's weight, his body trembling in sheer agony. A puddle of blood slowly formed beneath him. His teammates gasped in horror. Song Tao! But before anyone could move, Justin coldly unsheathed his sword. His voice was merciless. We can't save him. If you don't want to die, focus on killing the boss first. Then, he turned toward the desperately pleading Song Tao. And no! Please don't! But Justin didn't hesitate. He activated his skill. Explosive Flesh Arrow! A grotesque mutation spread across Song Tao's face, causing fleshy growths to swell hideously. His screams of agony filled the air. But Justin didn't stop. The growths continued to swell. Bigger. Bigger. Until, bang! Song Tao's entire body violently exploded, leaving behind nothing but a mass of gore beneath the boss beast. The detonation shook the surroundings and awakened the horned beast. Its eyes snapped open, its fur bristled, a deep, guttural growl rumbled in its chest, before it let out a thunderous, earth-shaking roar, the betrayal and the final stand. Justin's face twisted in rage as he barked at his remaining teammates. What are you standing there for? Attack! Lu Yi and Su Kai snapped out of their daze, their expressions growing serious. Su Kai let out a battle cry, flames bursting from his fists as he charged. With a powerful punch, a whirlwind of fire slammed into the boss beast. Lu Yi followed up immediately, her staff crackling with electricity as she fired a bolt of lightning at the creature. Bzzzt. The horned beast shuddered, its agonized roars shaking the forest. Justin smirked. It's almost done for, he shouted, his voice filled with glee. His eyes narrowed as he watched the monster struggle against their attacks. Ha! So much for being some legendary beast. If that loser Zhu Yi could throw it like a toy, how strong could it really be? He sneered, raising his sword. Go to hell, you filthy creature! However, the beast suddenly straightened its posture. A faint energy shield formed around its horn, absorbing the fire and lightning. Lu Ye's eyes widened in horror. No! Stop attacking! It's absorbing our energy! Su Kai's flames vanished, sucked into the horned beast's body. Justin's smug expression melted into fear. What? No, it's too strong. Then, an idea sparked in his mind, his lips curled into a sinister smile. With lightning-fast speed, Justin struck the back of Su Kai's neck. Thud! Su Kai's body went limp, his voice a weak whisper. Captain? His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. Lu Yi gasped, her face pale. Justin. But before she could react, wham! Justin's fist slammed into her stomach. Ugh! She crumpled to the ground. Coughing in pain, Justin looked down at his fallen teammates, his voice dripping with cruelty. You should be grateful, at least you'll be of some use before dying. Then, he turned and ran. Good luck, suckers! Lu Yi watched in shock as Justin disappeared into the forest. She could barely move. The horned beast stomped forward. Its massive claw hovered over Su Kai, then, crunch. Blood sprayed everywhere. Lu Yi let out a choked scream. The beast then raised its other claw, aiming for her. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for death. But instead of the crushing pain of death, she felt herself being lifted into the air. Lu Yi blinked in confusion. Zhu Yi was carrying her. Her voice was weak, trembling. Why? Why only me? Zhu Yi looked down at her, his face calm and indifferent. Because you're the only one who didn't bully me or make me carry your backpacks. At that moment, memories of his past life flooded his mind. He had been weak, he had been abandoned, he had been sacrificed. Back then, he had been a mere pawn, pushed aside, left to die. But now, not anymore. His fists clenched. In this world, only the strong can decide their own fate. A desperate scream interrupted his thoughts. Chewie! Help me! It was Justin, his face ashen, his eyes filled with terror. The horned beast's claw loomed over him. Justin's voice was shrill with panic. Please! Don't let it kill me! Chewie smirked. He repeated Justin's own words back to him. A monster isn't even allowed to touch you. Isn't that what you said, Captain Justin? Justin's face twisted in despair. No! You can't do this! You! Splat! The horned beast's foot came down, the ground shook. The only thing left of Justin was a pool of blood and broken bones. Zhu Yi watched calmly, then, system notification. Sleep-inducing pollen activated. A soft, golden mist floated toward Lu Yi. She inhaled, and her eyes fluttered shut. Zhu Yi gently placed her unconscious body down. For now, it's best that she doesn't know my secret. Then, he turned to the beast. Their eyes met. Zhu Yi grinned. Now then. His muscles tensed, his pulse quickened with excitement. It's just you and me now. The horned beast's gaze burned with primal fury, but Zhu Yi, he only felt pure exhilaration. Let's see if I can use you to become even stronger.